guys, how's it going?
Hey. Yeah, and that reminded me I need to change out your Geeks with Cash with your Geek Story and logo.
Yeah, because I haven't really been doing anything with that channel in a bit. It may or may not have a resurgence, but right now it's on permanent hiatus for right now.
Shame on both of you for your laziness. And to be honest, I think both of you should collapse your channels. If you're asking me, that's punishable by collapsing.
Didn't I already collapse one of your suggestions, sir?
Good point. Good point. That's right. Mr. Anarchist wins again.
So Scepter came in and said hi. Vinny's in the chat tonight. We have HTK in the chat tonight. Looks like Boogie's in the chat, back from the dead, showing up. Cam is showing up and saying hi to everybody. We got about 9 people right now that have popped up. It's our usual podcast time. We do this about every other week. We have been fortunate enough to have Mr. Matthew Sucks at Mega Man with us again.
He does. He's so bad at it. Dude, you want to hear something embarrassing about Mr. Matthews? Of course you do. He called me up. He called me up at like 3 a.m. last night. He's like, dude, I need you to record more gameplay footage for me because, as you know, Panda, I'm really horrible at video games where you are a master. This is a direct quote. So I said, all right, I'll record it.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, what?
How is it that when I spoke to you on the phone, you recorded me?
Yeah.
Him, you didn't record? You didn't record his phone call?
Oh, Mike, I have something. I have something. I do have a recording of Matthews, but that's for another time. But this situation is that I had to record Contra gameplay footage for him because you can't get past the first level without the Contra code. So what are you going to do?
Stacy's losing it.
Stacy, it must feel when you go to bed at night, are you ashamed of this phony sitting next to you? Who doesn't dude, when he picked up the controller, it was upside down. I mean, I guess Mr. Matthews is just going to have to come back on the show to prove me wrong at some point. But anyway, in the meantime, Nick, I'm sorry to have taken up so much of your time. Back to the show.
No, people seem to be enjoying it. Captain NDA popped into the chat. Eugene popped in the chat. Stampede popped in while you were on your tirade. Stacy is obviously here laughing at you, sir. She pleads the 5th for the record.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
Bored Distracted is in the chat. I believe this might be Captain NDA's first time at least chatting while he's been in the podcast. I know I've seen him around before, but I don't know that I've seen him pop in here before. So welcome. And my computer is now trying to catch up with me again. That's amazing. I've already rebooted.
Professionalism to the max.
I know. We run a totally professional podcast here. Mm-hmm. It'll be fun. Going to be an interesting night, folks. I apologize for all the technical difficulties.
Wow, you're pulling a Matthews now where you're bending space and time with your terrible internet access.
I'm going to try to... I don't think this will work here, but I'm going to try stopping the cam and bringing it back. And that did nothing.
Matthew, this is like an NLG show.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah, I know.
It's like the beginning of one of my shows.
It's an interesting thing tonight. So... apparently
when you're like me that produces zero content, I always look great. Like I'm well prepared. I do everything perfect because I don't release anything.
Because if you never output anything, nobody knows.
And never leave your home.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Just when he thought Panda couldn't get any uglier, he takes that off and realizes he's bald.
I hate Superman so much.
And yes, I'm experiencing input lag tonight. I don't know if it's like my graphics card drivers or something else going on. I just got a new card, so I installed new drivers. I don't know if StreamYard is behaving with them because I hadn't run a podcast since then. And now all sorts of things started having odd issues. So,
like Max Headroom.
$5,000 video card, and you can't even run StreamYard.
Yeah, I blame StreamYards for this one, quite frankly. It's just acting weird. You know what? I wonder if I turn off the green screen, if it'll...
I can dazzle people with an eyebrow show.
Okay, so it appears that StreamYard doesn't like the green screen for whatever reason.
You're welcome, folks.
So, we're just going to go with a green background right now for whatever reason.
I can talk more about Mr. Matthews in the meantime if you like. It's really up to you.
I'm sure you could. I still have a bunch of delay. So, that's the thing. All right. So, moving on. Yeah, Slow Mo 2000.
All right, I'll help you out. I'm going to be dead too.
StreamYard's been giving him problems too. Okay. All right. Cool. Good to see you, by the way, Casey. Thanks for popping in, man. Yeah, I don't know what's going on right now with StreamYard. They added some new features, which I haven't taken advantage of. And so it could be something weird there.
What's happening?
OBS and Skype with the wing. Just saying.
Yeah, I don't like Skype at all. I barely put up with it when I'm in your show. So just watching Nostalgia Nerd documentary about Mad Max PBS hack.
There you go.
Nice. So we do have a topic for you tonight. But before we do that, I'm going to kind of catch up with everybody, kind of see what they're doing, what they've been up to. So Panda, I imagine Lex Luthor, rather, I imagine yours is going to be quick. Because anything you make is probably going to show up in like 9 years.
2028, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello.
It'll be worth it when it shows up.
Yeah. No, so today
I'm working on nothing. Back to you.
Yeah, so today I actually filmed another scene for this episode. It's 4 seconds long, but I had to shave my head for it. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm about a month or two away, hopefully, from finally completing this massive episode.
I have to tell you, that is a dedication to your craft, sir.
Dude, I originally, for an episode that's not coming out for like another 5 or 6 episodes, I had to grow my hair completely out. Like I had really long hair for it. So I am willing to, I'm a method actor, Mike. What are you going to do? I'm like a De Niro.
You are.
I am a method actor.
He's something.
Correct.
So, Mike, what have
you said douchebag, you are correct.
Well, I wasn't going to say it directly. I was just going to inadvertently apply it. And Mike's muted now. I didn't do that. That was you.
I unmuted. I'll be down at my computer in just a couple of minutes.
I was about to say, I have been known to mute you before, but that wasn't me this time.
No. Okay. So what have I been doing? I have been touching grass. I have not played a whole lot in the last, although I have been playing Wulong. So I've been trying to make my way through that mantra.
Playing Wulong.
Yeah. Well, I also need to touch mass amounts of alcohol after playing Wulong.
That's also very true.
But been doing that. We have a show tomorrow, and actually, it's kind of interesting because we kind of touched on possibly talking about it tonight, but we're going to talk about it tomorrow night. Tomorrow night on the NLG show, we're going to go through the state of game preservation across,
which Game Pass does a bang up job of.
That's honestly, and we might get to that night. It depends on how this first topic goes, but I kind of want to start with that one because that's the one we all sort of agree upon. I went over both of these with both of you guys, so it's not like.
Can I just say what is happening on this show, Mike? What are you doing?
Sorry,
I'm frozen. Mike
putting away groceries. I'm sorry.
I'm not completely frozen right now. I mean,
you are completely frozen.
Really? Because I'm in slow-mo on my end.
No, you are complete. I'm the only.
I thought I would be done at the gym at like 9:30, and then I'd be home by 10 o'clock, and I'd be all set to go. And then all of a sudden, it's like 10:25, and I'm in line at the grocery store getting stuff for the week, and I'm like, "Holy crap!" This might be the comment
of the night so far. Panda is the next Christian Bale, but uglier and more douchier.
Bang on. That's actually what my mom said about me. So, like, you and my mom.
And there you have it. So, all right. I'm almost at my computer.
Mike, do me a favor.
Captain NDA says, Game Pass is trash. Just get a PS5. I think that one's aimed at you, Mike.
Mike, do me a favor. When you're putting the grocery do me a favor. Put the microphone as close to the bag as you possibly can.
And no. I do have a PS5, Captain NDA, and I don't turn it on for anything.
Yeah, because you don't believe in actually paying for things.
I look like I'm in deep thought, apparently. Yeah, all right. Yeah, it's going to be one of those evenings for me. I rarely actually have this major of a problem because I normally take care of things beforehand. I have not been on my A game lately. I'll be the first to admit that. So, our topic overall tonight is, and I know it looks a little confusing by the title because it was kind of long-winded when I originally phrased it out to the panel, and I didn't know how to phrase it on the thumbnail. So, essentially, the concept for tonight is what retro game mechanics or concepts would you like to see put into modern games? And conversely, in modern games, what niceties or conveniences or modern mechanics, if you could go back in time, would you put in a retro game? This is kind of where I originally wanted the channel to kind of go, which is kind of blending the old and the new. What can we learn from the old and bring into the new? And what new mechanics have come that we think are vast improvements over what we used to play. So that was sort of the original idea of the podcast in the first place. So it's kind of nice that we touched on this, and kind of goes along with the homework that I forgot to assign everybody that I now put on my community tab, which is to look at a game, spend about 30 minutes, take some time, and just play it. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it now? What conveniences have you seen in modern games that you would have liked that would make that game better now? Is it an absolutely terrible game that you would like to see revisited and redone in a way? Because I feel like with remasters, that's more where we really need to go.
We already have a lot of... We'll be back in a half hour. Talk amongst yourself.
I was really hoping for more banging noises. Please stick around.
Hold on.
Hey, Henry, good to see you, man.
We're going to hear a toilet flush and just grunting.
PS4 complex just fine. Oh, God, we are not starting a console war tonight. Oh, what's up, Scrambles?
I don't know, man. Captain NDA. You can blame him.
Good to see you, man.
Zombie. Captain NDA had to
controversy, PC, Master Race. Oh no, we're going there. Oh, it's going to be one of those shows.
Well, I'm ready.
Then go ahead, sir. Kick us off.
Okay, so I broke it into categories. We did because we're doing both. We're going to go old to new.
You're far more organized than I am, sir. I had no time to look at this.
Yeah, I feel like I'm the only one that does work around here, guys. Jeez,
probably.
We have families and work.
That's why I bring you on, so I don't have to work.
Continue, Good point. All right, I broke it into old to new and then new to old. Right? Okay. I think that we're doing both. Correct?
Either way you want to go, either or both. Yeah,
okay,
go.
From old to new, I really miss this. Cheat codes and passcodes. For the love of God, I want cheats back again. Like, those were so much fun after you beat a game and you just wanted to have some fun. But nowadays there are barely any cheat codes. And if you do have them, a lot of times they're behind a paywall, believe it or not. So I would like to see that. Just starting it off, a little something simple.
One game I think actually that does a good job on that, but you have to unlock them and earn them, was the Lego Star Wars games.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They would have a bunch of different modifiers and unlocks and things like that that you could do to just finish collecting all the characters or hit all the stud counters to get all the achievements and stuff like that. And those were fun little additions. I really enjoyed finding those and unlocking those. Now, you're right, though. In a lot of modern games, unless you're getting a game on PC.
Right, that PC, doesn't really, that doesn't count.
And you can mod the game.
Yeah.
There aren't really a lot of actual, cheat codes or anything like that.
Even GTA watered down their codes. They were cheat. They used to have the best cheat codes. And, I miss, the God mode on Doom.
God mode, yep.
All that stuff, and that's all gone now.
Captain, I see your point. I also don't. He says you don't need cheat codes when you offer varying difficulty levels.
No. That's not the same.
That's missing the point.
Yep, that's not the same.
Those are mostly for laughs. Sometimes it's something as simple as Big Head mode in Gauntlet or NBA Jam, right?
Mm-hmm.
But enter in a code to do that, or a random modifier in, say, Mortal Kombat 3 or something like that you would put in that would just really kind of randomize and
Yeah, sometimes it's fun just to have all the weapons at the start.
just to do something goofy and goof off for a while. Matthews would like me to emote a little. I need to look alive. You killed me when you left the show, sir. I am a shallow husk of a man. Look at what you've done, sir. Look at it.
So Panda.
Yeah.
So cheat codes I'm with you on. Explain the reason for wanting passcodes.
Oh, I'm just lumping them together because they
Gotcha.
in the old school days they had passwords. So it's the same kind of thing, and if you didn't want to do an up, down, left, right, whatever, maybe there's like Turok, for instance. They did a remaster of Turok. They had a little cheat menu and you could type in Oblivion or whatever, and you could all the God mode and all that other stuff. So yeah, it's the same kind of thing.
Zombie also mentions let's bring back Game Genie and Game Shark. And those fell out of fashion when they went CD because it was harder and harder to kind of use them. I feel like now, particularly with more things going digital, is a great time to be able to like have something like that they could work on an agreement to plug stuff into a game. You just have the application and key in a code, and it can modify the source code accordingly and stuff like that. I think that would work actually really well now.
I think what killed Game Shark was when people began to use Game Shark to pirate games. That's when Game Shark really kind of had to shut themselves down, because people were using Game Sharks at that point to run, for example, PlayStation 2 games that they downloaded from the internet. So that hurt that effort.
Yeah, I know the PSP had like a hack or something like that with a particular game that would allow you to exploit things, and I know a lot of people were using some of the hacks and Game Genies and stuff like that on the Dreamcast to do like pirate games and stuff like that.
Well, the Dreamcast actually was much easier to do. You could just make copies of games,
right?
But
I'm sorry, Mike. Continue.
Oh no, I was gonna say I would like to definitely see. I'd like to see the cheat codes and the God mode and stuff like the invincibility or unlimited ammo, that kind of stuff like that, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you look, I can to some degree understand, because of the trophy system and all that other stuff, that and developers who put a lot of time and energy into this, they want you to play the game properly. Okay, fine. At least then if you beat the game, then offer, unlockable ammo and all that other stuff. That would be appreciated.
Yeah. Well, I would take it a step further, and if developers are really that concerned about that, which I understand that they would be, then figure out a way to disable.
They do. Some do. Like they'll say you can't use. Yeah, the trophies are disabled for if you use this.
Well, and that would be fine. I don't care about that. Now, Boogie makes a point here. He says varying difficulty levels doesn't give him big head mode or paintball bullets. Eugene brought even a completely different one. I want standard games to come with manuals again.
Well, he said freaking, so
he did.
Language, sir, language. My goodness, guys.
So and then Scrambles is commenting that I'm cardboard cutout.
Yeah, permanently in deep thought.
Yes.
And Matthews, we're doing good, man. We all wish you were here, particularly since I look like a cardboard cutout, not having to play the part of you tonight. So I had to pick up that slack and look completely disinterested and frozen. Thank you, sir. Sir. Yeah. Eugene said Cuphead even added a cheat mode for the game Gen.
Game
as well.
Genie?
I think it's just pronounced Gen. Hey, Potion, good to see you, man.
Well, I have a. I'm sorry.
Captain, you said he was referring ones that offered unlimited lives, unlimited continues, not ones that offer silver.
Yeah, but still,
I can. Most modern games don't necessarily need that, even without difficulty levels, unless you're playing something like Dark Souls, right? Right. Most of them are pretty approachable.
No, you're not equating power fantasy into this. Sometimes it is just fun to just, without any effort, just mow things down. So I want unlimited ammo, God mode. I want untouchable. I just want my 5 minutes to feel like a really cool guy as opposed to this zilch
In
that's sitting
in
before you.
Doom, I want unlimited rockets and unlimited BFG. Just give me
Bingo.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah, Scramble says he sucks at most games. Game Over is actually tattooed on his fingers from in the Game Genie font. Debug mode in some games actually is still a thing, depending on the game. I know games like Subnautica, 7 Days to Die, games like that often have like a creator mode or a debug mode that lets you do different augments to command line in the game by going into that and being able to do that. So that's still a thing. It's just not in AAA games anymore. You have to kind of hit the indie scene. Hasselhoff says he's gone for a few weeks and Panda's gone aerodynamic. Boogie says these games these days should offer codes to access the cut content in a finished way, like alternative secret levels or variants on costumes or weapons that felt too overpowered. That would actually be really good use of either just bonus extras or cheat codes that you unlock by doing certain features and things like that. I think that would actually be a good reward, particularly if you had to.
There's a game, and I can't remember, but they actually offered they let you play a sectioned off level that was never in the game. It was like a scrap version of it.
Yeah. No, stuff like that I think is actually really cool. And honestly, even if you had to find them, like in Doom 2016, you got cheats, but you had to like find them in the stage. They were hidden collectibles.
Dreamfall Chapters was the name. Sorry, continue.
And then you could do like different augments and stuff like that at that point, like unlimited lives or unlimited ammo or whatever. But Doom's a more modern example of one that actually kind of had cheat codes. And I would basically do the stages the normal way, but sometimes I would just have fun with those afterwards.
Yeah.
Already beat just because it was fun, and I wanted to see what it did. Let's see. Scrambles is putting in the code.
I actually have a potentially controversial.
For a minute, I thought Nick was in deep thought. Ocean, I am never in deep thought. You're incorrect, sir. I appreciate the vote of confidence. However, ill-founded it is.
So, Panda, before you get to your controversial one,
I
got one that I would like to bring in from modern day that I would love to have seen back in the retro times.
Okay, I wonder if it's the same one I was going to say. Continue.
Well, let's say it at the same time. At the count of three.
No. I got it right here. So you.
Okay. I would have liked for retro systems earlier than the PS2 to have dual analog sticks, to be able to do dual analog in games that, for example, the Saturn, the Dreamcast. In some ways, the N64 single analog stick, having to use combinations of buttons to strafe and combinations of buttons to look or to move. I would have liked to have seen dual analog sticks much earlier than when we got them.
Yeah, I had that written down too. That wasn't my controversial, but I'm with you on that. I really like that.
That's
idea.
a great modern convenience. It would have been really nice to have it earlier. Forgotten Worlds would be a primary kind of candidate for that for me in the 16-bit era, because you have to use the base buttons to be able to spin your character around, which would be so much easier with an analog stick. And I agree with trophies being disabled with cheats. That makes total sense to me.
They do that a lot. When in the rare ability, when the rare time you can actually have
SNES games. Not recognizing that code, Vinny. Hey, Mazen, good to see you, man. Yes, I'm doing my Mr. Matthews tribute by being frozen.
What's up, Mazen?
Good to see you, man.
I challenge the chat. How you doing, Pace? I challenge the chat to come up with your best Mr. Matthews jokes, and we'll do a top 10 with the best jokes about Mr. Matthews. Start going, guys. Start.
Mazen says that
and by we, it's just going to be Panda.
That's correct.
Okay, because I'm not doing that.
I did bet my hair. I lost.
Yeah. Yeah. Pace said you lost it in size gambling, Dan. Yeah, Panda's great at mowing things down. Look at that head.
Yep.
I didn't know we could pay our gambling debt with hair. Well, I mean, if you have hair, I guess you could. But
And I had to give all my hair, if you know what I'm talking about.
I remember older RPGs having dev rooms. Yeah, sometimes they would leave those in as unlockable secrets and areas that you could kind of get to if you could glitch. And even some of the modern games up to right around, I want to say the 360 era still had stuff like that around. I haven't heard as much rumor about it more recently, but I know that's been a thing from time to time. Nintendo likes giving people cheats like invincibility and unlimited flying in Mario games, stuff like that. Would you like to play Luigi as a Luigi to play this level for you option? Yeah.
Yeah, they offer like assists, I think, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they would do stuff like if you failed enough on the stage, they would offer you like the golden bell where you got the invincible Tanuki suit and stuff like that. That one almost frustrated me because I couldn't turn that option off. Like if I wanted that, I would turn that on. But after I failed 3 times and then going, look, you obviously suck at this. Just use this.
Yeah, you know how you turn it off.
Frustrating.
You know how you turn that off, Nick? There's a way. Get
suck.
Better at Mario games.
I was going to say, don't suck. Pace says he said they ended that. They removed the dev rooms and some of the gamer masters, like Final Fantasy. Full games and all DLC on card or on disc. I kind of miss. I do kind of miss the one-shot game. What I don't mind on DLC is when you add a few extra characters. Okay, I guess I need to add and then remove there. There we go.
Okay.
Oh my God, he lives. He moves.
I was like, I have Mike in here twice, and now I'm confused.
I was expecting the shower to start hearing the shower going, and by the way, we're echoing, Mike. I think. Yeah.
No, you won't be anymore. I just switched my headphones.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
Do they do Game of the Year releases anymore? I think they actually do.
They do.
It is a lot more rare.
But it's always digital, so
yeah.
And it's for games that have never been Game of the Year.
Yeah,
that's
true.
the latest thing.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. But back on to the one that, as far as
well, Mike brought up one, right? He brought up the analog one.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Mine would have been checkpoints in some of the earlier games. Like checkpoints are a great modern feature.
That is a good one.
And ones that you can enable, even if it's just putting it at a lower difficulty, like the Ghost and Goblins Remastered, Resurrection rather. That's still a very hard game, but if you put it on like the lower 2 difficulties, you get more checkpoints, and that makes it far more approachable for a lot of people like me who are like an unbelievable scrub at that game, to be able to try to push through that. And I know this wasn't so much of a thing in the early day because they didn't have battery saves, but being able to like save your game after a stage, so you didn't have to leave your console on all the time, are some of the ones that I think are great modern conveniences that are in most games that I would like to see go back to like retro games.
Nick, I just have to stop you for a second. It's so distracting that it looks like you're just constantly sitting and judging me the entire time.
How do you know I'm not?
Well, I think we can assume that you probably are.
So, interestingly enough, when I came in on the PC, his screen is blank. Like he's completely blank. I don't see him at all.
I'm
actually gonna try to.
Well, I can tell you on the stream itself, he is just a still image.
Okay.
And he was on my when I was mobile, but now it's just a complete black screen.
Okay. I'm gonna try a different browser. Maybe it's something with Opera. If I pop in. Is it going to go crazy?
I guess while you do that, I'm going to mention my controversial one.
Okay, I'm going to try to come in on a different browser real quick. Okay. I will be right back.
Okay. Here's my controversial one. I think, Mike, you'll have a little bit to say about this. And I think you're going to be for it. I think.
Okay.
I think. This is from new to old. So.
Game Pass.
Yes.
Really?
No, I know. No. Health regeneration. I love that the mechanic of health regeneration, because it kept you in the game instead of instead of you just having a X amount of energy and then you die. This was an ability to keep in the fight, learn to get away once you're losing, regroup, get away, then come back in. I like that loop better, in my opinion. But it's going to be controversial. Thoughts?
I don't disagree. I think, no, but I'll caveat it by saying I think that it should come with your standard, like an RPG where you have to eat food or something. You have to do something or rest or something that, because health generation in real life is exactly like that. I mean, you rest,
Right.
and you get health.
Well, in this situation, like when we're not getting shot at all the time in real life, and I don't just eat a strawberry and I'm better.
Well, there's that. But so, are you talking about, like, let's say,
So I'm talking the Halo method, right? The Halo model of regeneration, and what's so funny? What's happening? I'm so confused.
Mazen says,
"Oh,
look at that sexy beast. We know his brother Mike, Pecs of Steel Mullis."
You are looking quite svelte and irresistible, might I say, Mike?
Well, not bad for an almost 50-year-old.
Not bad, not bad.
Not bad. I'll take it.
You will.
So,
That means.
my wife will take it too, but that's a whole other story.
Hey-o!
Hey-o!
So my imaginary girlfriend. Whoa!
Oh!
Shut up, you old bag!
What did you call me?
What's going on?
Health regeneration. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, the Halo model I'm talking.
Yeah, so the Halo model is interesting because the Halo model is centered around a shield. And I could do that.
Like take a really hard game. Like let's take a Ghouls and Ghosts or whatever, a Ghosts and Goblins.
Oh, yes.
That maybe.
And then she's back.
Whoop, oh.
I thought I killed the stream for a second because when I tried to come in, it was like the broadcast ended. And
your chat would have loved. Your chat would have loved if you killed the stream. Sadly, we just kept babbling on.
Oh, it's one of those nights. Professional. One of the many reasons I will probably never monetize. Oh my god!
So,
all right,
go ahead.
I know you
Panda,
were saying regenerating. When I left, you were saying regenerating health.
Yes.
I don't know where you guys went from there.
That's pretty much.
So this would be bringing a new system to an old.
Right.
Obviously not for every game, but I like that idea of. I'm just repeating myself, so just because I'm not sure what you heard. I just like health regeneration because it keeps you focused in the game as opposed to lives, which is, okay, you're dead, now you start over. This gives you an ability to keep in the game and keep moving forward. It just gives you a moment of pause. I got to do something better because I'm losing here.
Hi, Carla.
Sister Carla's in the house.
Just destroyed my
Now,
eardrum.
one of the things I think older games, that new games would benefit from.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Hey,
I was laughing at Eugene's comment.
It could be worse.
One of the things I think actually a lot of modern games would benefit on, in a lot of ways, is simplified game mechanics. I think I think a lot of retro games had a much more streamlined approach because that's what they had at the time. You only had 2 buttons or 3 buttons, and you kind of had to make it work. So a lot of games were a lot more simplistic in their approach by design because they had to work with that control scheme. As we've gotten these 14, 15 button controllers with the paddles on the bottom, and God only knows what else they're going to add on to it in the future, it seems like you've got so many buttons to do so many different things and so many different button combinations that sometimes it just becomes like awkward for no real good reason when something could have been vastly simplified. Like an example of a system getting too complex of 2 modern games, I'd say is like Doom 2016 versus Doom Eternal, right?
Yeah.
2016 had a nice, clean, streamlined system that was easy to access, easy to understand, easy to execute in the middle of the fights that they were throwing you in. Eternal tried to ramp that up and split that up to make you think more about the weapons you were using, where you were shooting, what ability you were using at one time. And while it wasn't hard to execute those, it was very frustrating to try to execute them all in that same frenetic, if not even more frantic combat than the last game had, which dampened some of my enthusiasm for it on the whole. Right? It just felt like so much more of a slog because now I have to switch to this weapon because I have to take out that item on that guy. Otherwise, is he going to be a pain? Okay, now I'm down on armor. I've got to use the flamethrower. Okay, I need ammo. I need to blood punch. Okay, I need health. I need to gory kill. Okay, now I need to use my double jump and grapple to get over here so I could deal with this guy. And it just became too much to have to process.
Sure.
And I still finished it, but it kind of killed some of my enthusiasm.
Well, what happens is that you
Hey,
feel like if you're not using those functions, that you're not fully playing the game, and I think that that does detract from that game. Now, would the exception to that rule be games that are like the beat 'em up games that have button combos?
See, those I don't mind because those are usually simple inputs that you don't necessarily have to do. Now, one of the things I wish they wouldn't do in beat 'em ups is like, we'll do a trade-off on this, right? Say, for simplicity's sake, you can hit one button to execute a super, right? But that costs health. If you can execute the super doing the input, maybe it costs half that or none at all.
Those were in games like Streets of Rage and where you had one button that did the hey guys, Retro, that did the super move, whatever it was.
Right.
I think did Double Dragon do that too? You could do.
Double Dragon had some of those. I think you had some special inputs you could do like knee attacks or jump. Dive kicks or something like that in some of them. I forget what they are.
Final Fight had it too. And if you did that, like if you were playing as what the hell is his name, Joe or whatever the guy in the red was, and you were surrounded, you did that spin kick to get rid of everybody, it took away a little bit of your health.
Yeah.
So then let me tie that to pandas then. Would you want to be able to regenerate that health?
In that case, no. My compensation for that would be to have a button input that you had to do to make it not cost health, or you could do the easy route and just lose the health.
Okay.
I would say it does make you lose your health, and then if you don't stop quick, you're going to lose. Like it's just think of it as stamina. You're just going to get winded and fall down basically.
Right.
So I can't think of a game where health regeneration wouldn't make something better in my opinion, because again, it keeps you in the game. The problem to me with lives is that you play something, then it stops, and then you go backwards, right? So you're constantly rewinding as opposed to trekking forward, and it gives you time to get better. Oh, I got hit. I need to rethink that fight. I need to go back into it and do this. So that's why I think for most games it's beneficial.
Yeah. And I think in most cases, another one I think we could all agree with is like when you fall into a pit or you miss a jump or something like that, modern game will reset you on a platform with a health loss.
Mm-hmm.
And old game will just kill you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the knockback damage, which is like everyone's bane of their existence in a retro game, which was admittedly part of the challenge, would have been a little bit lessened by that. And that could basically be a difficulty setting flag you could set. That's one of the things I thought the Genesis actually did a lot better than the Super Nintendo's. I don't remember the Super Nintendo games having a lot of difficulty settings and options. The Genesis almost always had difficulty settings on them. If you went into the options on the game, you could increase the number of lives, you could lower the amount of damage you took, you could just lower the game difficulty, things like that. Like, I know a lot of people go through like Revenge of Shinobi and they would up the shurikens to like 40 or 60 as opposed to the base 35 to make the game a little bit more palatable as they're getting used to the flow of the game, right? So it wasn't so much a hack as it was an accessibility option in that case, right? So more people could experience the game. It didn't make the game that much easier, but it did make it more accessible for more people.
You know, Nick, I'm wondering if, obviously not tonight, but maybe a future game topic for the show, because I think it's actually a pretty interesting topic, is to, and this is on topic, is to look at and to question if those early games where you would, when you'd fall in the pit, you'd start over, like if all those things were actual game design decisions, or were they slaves to the limitations of things, the idea that you needed to have blockbuster rentals, so you had to make things longer. You didn't have enough memory to make a game last, 10 hours long. It was only going to last 30. So I'm wondering if maybe that's something to discuss, if that was actually true design.
I think we could have a longer discussion on it, but I mean, the short answer is yes. Both because the games were so short, once you understood how to play them, because like Ninja Gaiden, for example, I've spent tons of time trying to be less terrible at that game, and now I could probably complete it in, like, I'd say 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas my first clear was like 3 hours when I finally completed it, and that was after tons of practice, right? So I probably got 20, 30, 40 hours in the game. But had I had unlimited continues and the pit hadn't killed me and things like that, I probably would have completed it in maybe 2-3 hours max.
But do you think that was a natural evolution of game design, meaning that at that time that was the best they could think of, or do you think that it really was they wished they could do more things, but because of the limitations of the time? I think it was partially a memory limitation in the rental. Right. Okay.
Right. Because the game, you got to remember, a lot of those games are like 100 kilobytes. Right. Like a whole game on 100 kilobytes is laughable today. You can't even do a single texture for under a couple meg.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a low texture thing. I mean, when you start looking at games like Call of Duty, Warzone, that's like almost 150 gig install.
Yeah, and like 140 gigs is just lazy programming.
Yeah.
That does not need to be 150.
No, it doesn't. But that's how they program it, right? Your average install is somewhere between 70 and 80 gig.
Yeah.
Right? What I am liking about the modern era, and this will touch on a new game that's coming out that I wasn't excited about originally, which is going to sound odd for me on the game, but I am now, is Diablo 4. I wasn't excited about it, and I'm still not excited about some of the features of always having to be online. Always have to be in a server with other players. But what I am excited about is how they kind of took elements from Diablo 2 and elements from Diablo 3 and meshed them into a new system. Right. So now you have the skill trees that you have from Diablo 2, but it's focused and organized more like the way Diablo 3 handled things, where you have abilities and you can augment those abilities by going deeper into the tree. Right. So you pick an ability or a set of abilities and you work those, and then you go deeper into those, and the deeper into them, the more augments and enhancements that they get, right? They also added kind of like a perk system where you can kind of add little facets to your character that give you various different benefits and things like that, which I think is a really nice addition. That's a good way of kind of looking at the legacy that you built in the series and looking at these characters you used in the series, like bringing the rogue back and re-envisioning the rogue. Bringing the druid back from 2 and reimagining the druid, right? And modernizing them and bringing those things back for players to be able to use, but working them into new systems, new stories, new dynamics. It pays homage to what you've done and respects the direction you want to go as well, right? So I think those are cool ways of blending those two things.
I have an old to new, if you want to hear one.
Go ahead.
I don't think this is going to be controversial at all, especially for this chat and group. More
it's going to be.
No, it's not. It's actually, I think it's actually easy and lazy almost. More couch co-op and versus mode together.
That was my next one. Nice.
Look at us. Hey, look at us. Who would have thought? Boop.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree.
I agree.
That's one of the things that I've seen about console that will not be named, that was going to kind of start bringing back, was things like couch co-op. And that's one of the things I was kind of excited about, because I think that's kind of the kind of thing that I kind of want to see it come back from families and kind of for nostalgia at the same time, because I think it's a good, cool thing for if parents can get their kids to sit down and play a game with them, to be able to do a split screen co-op or something like that, and not have to be in separate rooms.
Mhm.
They can sit down next to each other. The closest you get to stuff like that now is like fighting games in like local, right?
Yeah.
You can sit down, you can kind of chew the fat with each other or talk about saying, or you just pass the controller back and forth on a single player game. I do that like every weekend with a buddy of mine. We'll sit down, and if we're not watching movies and doing something else, we'll boot up a game and we'll take turns playing a single player game like Ghost of Tsushima or Mass Effect. And we'll just play it together on the couch, just giving each other turns, who's driving what, right? If we have any decisions we have to make on stuff, it's like, well, what do you think? And we'll just kind of build the character together as we go along. And that's kind of how we've worked around stuff like that to an extent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are always more fun. As kids, it was always fun to have your best buddy at your side. And then me, who would always just when we fight each other, I would just yank their controller out and always beat them, is also a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, Pace is saying Ninja Gaiden, Contra, Jackal, you're striking gold to find any of these not rented when you get there to pick up a game. Yeah. Yeah, and those, because those were the ones that people would always rent again and again and again. One, because they're really fun games, and two, people actually, they really want to beat the game. They struck this balance, and Ninja Gaiden pushes that limit a little bit, and to a lesser extent Jackal, because I never really did get a good feel for Jackal, of giving you a level of difficulty that feels challenging but approachable, right?
Contra is the best example of that.
Contra is probably the more I got into Contra, the more I realized that game is probably one of the best balanced games I've played on the NES.
It is.
It's insanely hard, but as you get used to it, you start to get a feel for. And not everybody takes the path the same way. There's optimal paths through the game, but there's multiple ways you can kind of approach a stage and still succeed at it, which is a testament to good game design. Ninja Gaiden is a little bit less on that, because it's got
a lot less.
Ninja Gaiden has its cadence. You adhere to its cadence and how it's played, or you die.
Yeah, well, here in topic, my new to old is that enemies don't respawn when you return to a screen. So that's for Ninja Gaiden.
I would like enemies just not to respawn infinitely on me anyway, because I've had that happen.
That
I literally
happens
killed
now.
the guy on the screen, and he kept respawning in the same spot.
That's what's happening to me with Wo Long. Is I would kill a bunch of enemies. I would go to a battle flag to go level up or recharge or whatnot, and as soon as I left the battle flag, those same guys are right there again in the exact same spot doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, and stuff like that's kind of frustrating, and to a level to a point, it kills the immersion a little bit, right?
A lot. If you look away, the dead rise again. That's ridiculous. Oh, look at that! I just cleared an entire battlefield, but I looked over there for a second, and now they're back.
Now everybody's respawning.
Now they're
all back.
Yeah.
Don't blink. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, in a modern game, they don't do that so much, but that keeps the continuity. But that was part of the challenge and the difficulty, and sometimes the ability to farm, like in Metroid. If you needed like health and stuff like that, you would go back and forth between rooms sometimes, or you'd find a spawn point where things just kind of endlessly came up in a pattern, and you would deal with that that way.
Didn't the original, the first Legend of Zelda on NES did that a lot? You kill somebody, go up a screen, killed all it, come back down, and those people, they're right back there. But yeah,
pain in the patootie.
Yes, I'd like to see the return from old. I'd like to see the return of scoring. We don't get enough arcade style games where your idea is to just rack up a score. Everything has to be. You got to run a 12-hour story, or you have to do something. Why can't we just have a high score again?
I feel like VR is kind of filling that niche a little bit, because like Beat Saber is all pretty much score based. Like, can you do well enough that you don't fail the stage period, right? And then your main reward is getting a better score than you did last time. games like Geometry Wars, which is dated now, obviously, because it was like 360 era, was all about how far you can succeed and get the right score
and
or better, right?
Those seem to be where they're coming back is on things like the VCS, right?
Yeah,
like
I can see that. A lot of the re-energized stuff.
All the reimagined games are doing that, but
and I think retro here means River City Girls. I think.
Yeah, I think
because he said Retro City, but I think he means River City Girls.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I would like to see that have an online co-op as well. Having a couch co-op is great, and I think all, especially beat 'em ups, should have a couch co-op. Like not having a couch co-op on a beat 'em up is just ridiculous. That's beyond silly.
Yeah.
Just make sure you have a bunch of crappy third party.
Well, I actually always wish that a company that would really dedicate themselves to that idea. So, like, for instance, let's take Sony, for instance. If they made something that was going to be couch co-op, that in the game that you buy, you get vouchers for like $10 off controllers. So it promotes the idea of them making more money and getting controllers, and also getting that couch co-op going again.
Yeah. Right. Because you'd be more apt to have, like, I usually keep like 2 or more controllers in the house in case I find something I can play with Nicole, or she has her controller, I have my controller. So we don't have the one controller that may be dead. Like, I'll use mine, she'll use hers. That way there's always one charged if one of us wants to play. But yeah, I think it would help attachment rate with controllers if they brought a lot of that back. Because a lot of times it's a single player experience, whether you're playing with other people online or whether it's just a single player game. So why do you really need a second, third, fourth controller? Right?
And it's strange that it doesn't exist, because there are families that exist. There are larger families. I'm surprised that still isn't a thing somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, I would think that, your brother, your sister wants to play, that you could.
Right.
I'm surprised it's not a thing.
Pace said he's been playing split screen local Minecraft with his kid on the Switch the past few days.
Oh, that's great.
And see, that's a good example of one where you could do that, because Minecraft is one of those where, like, you can either try to do a story or you can just kind of do your own thing. If you have somebody who's really into it and you can get into it with them, that's another great option.
Night Dive, Pace said the Atari just bought a company that's incredibly good at reviving.
Yeah,
old games. Night Dive.
Do you have another one, Mike?
I'm trying to think that.
Well, I can say one if you don't have one.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I came prepared, unlike you jambronis.
I said
I'm actually just trying to catch back up to chat here. What's up, DJC?
I've had 3 already. So.
Oh, Chuck. Me and Chuck, we're doing a John Wick Fast and the Furious off. If I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Oh, I saw that.
I'm watching all the John Wicks. He's watching the Fast and Furious. I could not disagree with you more, Nick, but we're going to have a discussion about that soon. Anyway, on to the next thing.
He's going to be like 6 weeks trying to get through all those movies. You can get through all John Wick in one day.
You can get through all of John Wick in 5 minutes, because once you saw 5 minutes, you get the whole thing. Exactly. But anyway, so this is going to be a wacky one, old to new. I actually loved the days when there wasn't an internet for this specific reason. A, because it wouldn't be the downfall. The phone is the downfall of society. Aside from that little social commentary, no internet makes games like Zelda so much fun. I remember being on the playground and you would share these secrets. Like, did you hear that if you burn this bush on the third screen to the right, that there's a secret staircase? Like, games had this magical allure to them, this mythological feeling to them, because there wasn't instant gratification. That went with old adventure games as well, where you just, when you got stuck for 1 second, you just go, oh, I'll just check a guide online. Yeah. But you had to work at things and stuff like that. So I miss those times, those days.
Well, to kind of build on that and to go with a more modern example of that, like, I was playing through Gotham Knights, and people kept popping in my game, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is a single player experience for me personally.
Right.
I don't want other people in the game. Like,
well, I thought this was like a horror situation where, like, who has extra controllers in the house?
And I had to go 3 levels deep into like the freaking settings of the game to find out that it by default it set my game to public.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you. Not for this game. There's other games where that might be okay, but even then, I would probably prefer just to invite friends unless I'm going into a multiplayer game, right? Now, if I'm going into a major multiplayer game and I know what I'm getting into, that's fine. But this kind of game, I'm like, I could totally do this game solo. This is not a problem. I don't need somebody to jump in to help me unless you have like some sort of big grandiose event thing that you're going to throw into my game that requires like 2 or more people, right? Or 4 people to be able to complete. And I haven't seen anything like that in the game, and I'm like 20, 30 hours in. So I'm like, no. So I went in and finally turned all that off because I was basically just ignoring anybody that was like tagging along with me in the game and not saying anything. I'm like, well, one, that's kind of rude. But I didn't want you in the first place. But I didn't realize I had my game set to public. So that's on me now. And another one is another example of that is stuff like Demon Souls and stuff like that where people can invade your game.
Mm-hmm.
Like that game is hard enough that if I wanted an interaction with somebody, it would be a limited interaction. Like if I needed help or if I had somebody I wanted to go up with a game, I don't want people invading me. So that's one of those games where like if I play that game, any of those games at all, I have to disconnect myself from my Wi-Fi. Because I'd rather lose repeatedly than to deal with that.
So I tell you, I'd like to piggyback off of Panda's no internet for a moment and come up with a not so much a game mechanic. This might be a little controversial. This might be a lot controversial. Finished games at launch.
No, we can't have that. No.
Because that's one thing that we didn't. When you bought a game back in the day, whether it was cartridge or early CD, that game, you didn't have the need to patch those games. It either worked or it didn't. It either worked or it sucked. There was no middle ground. There was no, we'll just go ahead and release this game now and then patch it 2 days later to fix everything.
Mike, can you tell me any time, like anything in history or in reality, where that would be legal anywhere else? So here's a car. It can't drive at the moment, but the stereo works.
Right.
The brakes may occasionally give out. Don't worry, we're going to patch that at some point, but you need to pay full price right now. I don't know how this is legal. I don't get it.
Hey, your skateboard guy can literally phase through walls, and hey, half the game is on the disc. We just didn't program it. We'll get to that. You go ahead and buy the game. We'll get to that later. It's like, hey, watch this movie. We're gonna give you everything but the ending, but we'll give you the ending in like a couple of days. You just
like the
we'll gladly take your money
with the next gen consoles. Like I bought it because I was like, okay, I'm gonna play the single player campaign. Remember how this game's played because I haven't played one of these in like 15 years, so I don't even know what half the buttons do. So I definitely don't want to go online yet. There was one mission. The rest were doled out over months. There was one mission to my single player story on the disc. I couldn't uninstall a game fast enough.
What game was that?
It was the first Call of Duty that came out on the PS5. Okay. I think they've had another one since then. But it was like Modern Warfare 2 or something like that.
Oh, the remastered Modern Warfare 2?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Our magazines, game magazines. I know nobody buys magazines anymore, but those were.
I do.
I miss.
They usually featured scantily clad ladies on it, but aside from that.
CM Retro Gaming, no popping in a game and waiting to download a 6 gig day one update.
Also,
by the way, man, how you doing?
No loading. Also,
yeah. Well,
that would be a good one.
The Switch fixes that in a lot of ways because it's on card. You still have a little bit, but it's significantly faster.
Genesis games did have some modicum of loading screen, but they were fast. I mean, they weren't.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single game that loaded more than 2 seconds maximum. on Genesis. I can't ever think of one game where I was sitting at a loading screen. That happened with CDs. I don't remember that ever with cartridges. Ever.
I remember some of the RPGs doing it.
Well, what I remember
not
too,
many
is even the OG Xbox was more limited on that because you had games that would really cleverly cache things on the hard drive,
right,
and keep the game pace moving. Halo was a perfect example of that.
I mean,
right?
the PS5 and the Xbox Series X are getting better at that. Like Ratchet and Clank on the PS5 does not have a lot of loading.
Those hard drives are so ridiculously fast, though.
They are. There are not a lot. There is not a lot of loading.
I haven't seen loading on PlayStation 5. Barely
yeah, there's a bit of loading on the Xbox because its drive isn't as quick.
But you're talking about a fraction of a second.
You're talking about
the quick resume really helps a lot. Actually, it's a lot of help. It's not as good as the PlayStation 5's just raw power and speed on the drive.
Again, that
SSD is insane.
Mm-hmm.
But there's games like, and both consoles have it now, the Medium, that did not have a lot of loading. And they're getting better now at hiding loading behind cutscenes.
Interesting. Yeah.
I didn't know Street Fighter Alpha 2 and SNES had loading. See, that's what the way they try to hide it is so obvious now. Like, in the 360 era, it was all elevators. It was always an elevator.
Yeah.
With some random preloaded dialogue that would finish long before it loaded, and then everybody's just sitting there in awkward silence. In the PS4 era, it was narrow gaps you had to squeeze through. That's their loading phase. Yeah. At first,
Tomb Raider,
wow, this looks like there's no loading time, and then after a while, you're going, why is everybody going through a narrow crevasse? Aha!
Yep.
Never went to the half open to show up, and half the attractions are down. Still pay full price. Maybe Eamon looked like that and said, "Yes, more of that."
Yeah, but add to that they do, because like actually theme parks will tell you that XYZ ride is not operational today. This is no, everything's cool, dude. You can come right in, and then nothing is working. Like they don't tell you up front what's not working, and that's ridiculous.
Right.
Like, when you think of the disaster that was Cyberpunk. By the way, now it's patched, it's wonderful. But back then, you were getting a broken
because it was down to like $30. So I'm actually wanting to start.
Great game, dude. Great game. But back then, it was unplay. The PlayStation 4 version was as close to literally unplayable as you could get.
Yes, and the PC version was better, but it was still jank. It was super bad. It was just the least worst of your options if you had to play it day one.
I think the joke was that the Stadia version was the best. If I remember right, the Stadia version was the supreme version during that time period.
Yeah, and honestly, if the games need a patch, I'm okay with like a patch, right? Because and the reason I'm a little bit more tolerant of it these days is because the games are so big in scope. They're so big in size.
Then don't be big in scope until you get a handle of your product. Like, don't release something.
There's such
that you can't
a grandiose scale of stuff in the games now. Like, Ninja Gaiden even had some glitches and bugs in it and stuff like that probably shouldn't have been there. And that's like 120 kilobyte ROM, right? Mm-hmm. It's probably a few thousand, maybe 10,000, 20,000 lines of code or something like that. You're looking at like billions of lines of code in a modern game, right?
And opportunities. Like when you consider an open world, how do you calculate that you use the fishing rod at this exact moment when lightning struck at this time that causes a glitch? It's hard to calculate. Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's obvious things that get missed through playtesting because they're so niche, and then there's just blatantly, this is just broken.
Like Cyberpunk.
Like this, it never should have released in that state.
Yes.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5.
Where you went
broken. Completely broken.
Yeah, a Call of Duty game on the Switch that required like a 60 gigabyte download because they couldn't fit it all on the cart. And again, that comes down to them not wanting to address their code to what the console can handle.
Well, y'all are gonna get that. Y'all are gonna get that for the next 10 years.
Well, they were what they probably did is they probably dumped the 4K textures on the game anyway. Because they just ported it. They didn't want to like rip out the 4K textures, something no Switch can handle. So why
It's just
have it?
it's sloppy code. When you look at Breath of the Wild, whatever your opinions of the game is not important here. That game is like only like what 3 gigs, like, and what they did with that code was
the
incredible.
scope and grandeur of that game is huge,
and they got it down to nothing.
Because I have mixed opinions on it, but that's more on not on how it's designed, but more on how some of the mechanics are and how the story was laid out. Right, those are all fixable things that they could have, that were deliberate design choices that I disagreed with, not how it ran or looked or how big the world was. So nothing related to that on mine anyway. We get the privilege of playing a game early to test it for the developers. And that's another thing that's a little odd. Like when I played it, because I played the beta yesterday, right? That was the only day I jumped in, and that was clean. Like you could get in, it immediately brought you in. You played, there was no problems, there was no hangups. I never got disconnected. I disconnected myself. My big problem was there's no way to actually exit out of the app itself. You could log out, but there was no exiting out of the app necessarily, which I thought was weird. At least on the Xbox. That's where I grabbed it because I figured Xbox would have it up there for free. I wasn't sure if PC did or not. But the first early beta for the people who pre-ordered, they got hosed for the most part because it was almost in an unplayable state because nobody could stay connected. Right? So they quickly addressed that before the open beta. So they overcompensated for the open beta. So nobody had any problems with the open beta. Well, they weren't the people that put money down. I didn't put any money down for that. So I got a better experience than the people that gave them money.
Nick, are you wearing an Outer Worlds shirt?
I am wearing a...
Yeah. So
it's not the right way. It's not the right choice. It's Spacer's choice.
Yeah, so interesting.
Great shirt.
On topic, like I just bought the because I love that game and I bought the.
It's a great game.
It's a fantastic game.
I bought the Spacer's Choice Edition where they said the new incredible frame rate. So the worst frame rate of all time. They really screwed that thing up like crazy. You can't ever bypass the legalese thing that happens in the beginning. There's so many bugs in it that they're fixing now because they outsourced to another company. It wasn't Obsidian that did this release.
Of course.
But again, so you buy this game, and it's, I'm not going to say unplayable, but on PC was borderline unplayable. The frame rates dipped to the tens, like 10 to 15 frames per second.
That's abysmal. Because that game doesn't require a super beefy graphics card.
It's not.
Well, they redid it.
GeForce 1080 and played it like medium, I think. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. And if you watch the trailer, this is kind of what I was saying before. Like, I don't know how this is legal. All the advertisements say better frame rate, but it's way worse than the original.
There you go back.
And better looking, that's debatable because some are just blanketed with green fog that was never there in the original. So again, I don't know how these things are legal. And it goes back to what Mike was saying, so sticking on point, that back in the day, when you bought a game, you were, for the 99% chance you were going to get a full, complete game with maybe an understandable glitch here or there. Nowadays, you are expecting a broken product.
Yeah, now most people aren't pre-ordering games because they're expecting the game to come out in a broken state. So they're waiting to see how broken it is before they invest any money in it.
Yep.
And honestly, that's my solution to like the $70 game problem. If $70 is going to make it or break it for you, do you really need to play the game day one? Odds are you have enough stuff like me in your backlog from like indies and other games that were more expensive or ones you just never got to that you picked up, that you could play games for the next 3 years and not really need that game.
Yeah.
And within 6 months, they all drop down to like $30, $35 anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're sure you're going to play day one, like I might pre-order Diablo 4 because I have a feeling I'll get sucked into that one.
That puppy's like $80, isn't it? Like that one.
It's $70 for the base, it's $80 for the deluxe, and then there's like a $99 hyper deluxe one. And most of the stuff that I might get the deluxe just for a few fun cosmetics and earlier access because I think you get access to the game like 4 days earlier. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I mean, it gives you a season pass, but when I looked at their season pass, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be because when I heard the word season pass, I'm like, oh no, not this. Mm-hmm. No, please don't do this. that it was going to break the balance of the game and people were going to have these massive advantages in the game. And mostly it's just cosmetics. Everything else is unlockable for free. Though I think they get it unlocked by paying like an extra $10 per season or something. Right? So I'm like, okay, that I can live with. That's fine. Gaining experience in that game wasn't really a massive challenge for me. And they weren't getting any weapons that were going to break the game. So I'm like, okay, woo, you want to sell people cosmetics, sell people cosmetics. That's fine. I kind of wish there was less of that and you could just unlock it like you could in old games. Which brings up another thing of retro that I wish would go more modern. I miss unlocking characters in fighting games.
Oh, yeah.
Like, instead of giving you $30 extra to get 6 extra characters, I'd like to unlock characters, right? It adds more life to the game because you're going through it more times. You're going through it with a special character or trying to do something specific to unlock this character. Kind of like going through the challenge tower on the PSP version of Mortal Kombat. The Unchained version, it was a completely lame reward, but you got a special skin for Molina by doing it, right? So it's kind of like a feather in your cap kind of thing for doing it. Kind of like getting the foam finger gun thing for going through Dead Space 80 million times on the hardest difficulty or whatever, right? And stuff like that they don't do in fighting games anymore. You just pay the fee each season and you get the characters.
Sort of. I guess it's a little unrelated, but like Capcom's actually really good in the Resident Evil series as far as giving you rewards once you beat it, as far as costumes and weapons and things like that. So maybe not in fighting games, but there are unlockables. Capcom's usually pretty good with that.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm trying to. I saw Steam had a sale where they were selling the remasters of the first 3 games for like $10 a pop. And I'm like, I've never gotten into this series. I had one bad experience with Code Veronica, and I wrote the entire series off. I'm like,
wow, off of
I'm like, they're $10. I'm like, they're $10. I'll just buy them. So I bought the first 3. So those are on my list to queue up and
2 is a masterpiece.
The only one I ever played was Code Veronica on the Dreamcast. I hated the tank controls.
So then go to 2 because
I hated most things.
Okay, do not
Code
do
Veronica. Code Veronica was a different monster in the Resident Evil series, and I know why they did that way on the Dreamcast. But I'll tell you what, that goes to. There's a mechanic that I would love to see come back that Resident Evil and games like that did that I think are really good, and that is the static camera thing. Walking through a room and seeing the room in 3D and you walking through it. You actually, the camera's not behind you. Not everything has to be first or third. Yes, not everything has to be first and third person.
Camera angle.
Well, not even. Well, yes, and fixed. Just a fixed, like a camera up on the wall, right, kind of thing. Not everything has to be a third person over the shoulder thing. Some of that to me has taken away the immersion, and that's one of the things I really liked about the medium from Bloober was that it gave me a little bit of that where it just stayed where it was and you walked through a room. Not many games do that.
What's up, Si? Good to see you, man.
It's that thug life.
And most people will do the over-the-shoulder third-person perspective. That's kind of become the de facto standard, I want to say, for most...
Lately.
For most games.
But I get what... And Mike, there is actually... I forgot the name. I'll have to look it up for you. There is a few games coming out with that medium, if you will, kind of updated fixed camera look. Real quick, Nick, if you weren't a fan of Code Veronica, play Resident Evil 2 first. Don't play the first one. The first one is an old remake that keeps the fixed camera angles. Resident Evil 2 is
I don't mind the fixed camera angles. It was the clunky take controls that drove me crazy.
Just play Resident Evil 2 first. Trust me.
Okay.
Because the first one is tank controls. It's all that stuff. Just go to number 2.
It was just very awkward to control and cumbersome in ways it didn't feel it needed to be for whatever reason. Like there was, in that day and age, there was no reason to design the game that way. They did it deliberately.
Well, you had to because of that fixed camera angle. Because if you were to, when you walk forward out of a room, that camera angle changes, so your forward may now be up backwards, if that makes sense. So they had to have the tank controls to say the direction you're holding will mean forward, no matter where you're going, if that makes sense.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It also doesn't, because if the angle changes, like if my room goes here and then it goes down, I know to press down, not to press up.
Well,
It's always down.
Test this theory.
Reason, right?
You can test this theory perfectly in that Resident Evil 1 remake, that old remake, because it had the option not to do tank controls, and watch how clunky it starts to get. Especially when you're running away from something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might start with 2.
Start with 2.
I kind of want to just play through them in order, because that's kind of how I do.
Fine, but if you don't like 1, go to 2.
Okay.
Because 2
there
is an actual.
There were other problems I had with that one too. That, like, I had such little ammo by the time I got to the end of the first disc that I had literally played through the entire first disc again, using the knife to kill pretty much everything that was killable with the knife.
Yeah.
So I had a ton of ammo when I finally got to the end boss on the first disc, your first major boss fight. It took him out like a chump. Didn't even need half the stuff I saved, like not even a quarter of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then got to where they flipped characters, and I had nothing again, because the inventory space, the weapons and all that, didn't transfer.
Yeah.
And at that point, I just took it out, and I'm like, done.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
blame
now
you.
done.
The remakes get rid of those problems.
I'm like, I'm not doing that again. No.
Matter of fact, you'd probably like Resident Evil 4 the best. Actually, for me, that's not my favorite one at all. But I think you'd like 4 the best out of all.
I might. I don't know. I've seen a couple people play through 4, and it kind of looks fun. There's going to be one gripe I'm always going to have with Resident Evil, and that's the inventory space and the saving ribbons. Well, I don't like either one of those, and I know those are a constant.
Well, the inventory space is to keep you. It's that whole idea of survival horror. But if you go on an easier setting, you no longer have like the ribbon issues.
Yeah.
That I can tell you.
Nick uses greasery. My illusion has been shattered. I'll never believe his awesome backgrounds again.
Yeah, he uses a green screen to show a green background.
It was giving me a lot of like lag. I don't know what's going on, but the StreamYard was not behaving well. When you're playing a game, the game should not reverse your directional input without warning. That's just bad design.
But that's why there's tank controls. That's exactly the reason. It's to avoid that.
So anyway,
I don't like tank controls, by the way. I'm just telling you why they came up with that system.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I understood it from when they first came out with the game. Because when you first came out with the game, you had basically just had like a D-pad. You didn't have dual analogs, right?
No, dude, I'm telling you, it really is because of direction. Because when you are going to another screen, you're not aware of where that camera is going to shift. So the minute you're now in a shifted angle, your control is different. You'll understand it when you play that remake. You'll see exactly.
Yeah, and it may be more palatable at this point. I know when I first ran into it, that's the first game I ran into that used that.
Mm-hmm.
No other game I played used that, and it was incredibly frustrating to try to adapt to.
Yeah, I'm certainly not a fan.
It was very unintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that's how it worked from the very beginning, it's kind of like looking at Demon's Souls. Like, I play that game and I go, how did this ever get a sequel, much less a popular franchise?
Yeah.
Because the way that game is balanced and structured, I don't understand why anybody would ever want to even touch it, much less play another one if they did beat it. Like, I get no joy when I beat a boss in that game. I just get a sense of relief that, thank God, it's over. Like, there's no elation, there's no dopamine, there's just, thank God I'm done, right? Yeah. So I don't understand how that would get a sequel. And so there's always games that are like that, and that could be an entirely different topic that we could do. It's like games that we have no concept how they got a sequel because you just don't understand the original, right?
Yeah.
Like you play 3 or 4 down the road and you're like, oh, well, this makes more sense now, right? Like, I understand now. But you go back and you play the first one and you wonder, how did I get from here to something that's good without this entire series tanking on this game?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how? Like, how and why
Yeah.
would you ever fund this again?
Yeah.
Because there's a number of them that are like that, right? That started off with not very good entries into the first one. But
well, I certainly am not
the rest of them are great, right? Like, a lot of people will say, like, don't play don't play the original Assassin's Creed first. Play like 2 or 3.
Oh, I don't know who would say that. I think the original Assassin's Creed was really good. It was the trendsetter. I would say,
recognize how terrible I had. Nick the Liar has.
But I'll give you a game. I'll give you a game in a series that I would say that about, and that's Grand Theft Auto. I would not play Grand Theft Auto.
I almost did a
Theft Auto
video
2.
on that this week because while the second one is really kind of where you want to start because that's where it started really doing the perspective that everybody fell in love with. The first one's iconic, just because it started that. Almost like its own little subgenre of you really playing the villain, right?
Well, no.
And
what
just
I
there's some
mean
shenanigans in there.
What I mean is that 1 and 2 are direct 2D overhead games with bizarre ass controls that just don't make any sense. It wasn't until 3 where it turned into a third person over the shoulder, yada yada, that it really spawned the good. The one that's so popular today. But
which games are we talking about? I missed.
Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, okay.
Grand Theft Auto 2 was a bizarre. It is not even close to what 3 and Vice City and all those are. Not even close.
Yep.
Somebody screen captured me being frozen.
And I think
Put it on Discord.
I think Pace said that I don't actually film in space. I do. If you look out the window, which I'm not going to get up right now, but it's space out there. This just happens to be my office on the ship. So don't the illusion is still there, my friend. The illusion is still there.
Yeah, and there are a lot of games that I feel like actually had some sort of like modern inspiration or were a bit ahead of their time when they came out, right?
Oh, there's tons of them. I'm failing to think of it, but there's tons of that were way ahead of its time.
Oh yeah,
and that a lot of even the game itself may not have been very successful, but a lot of those mechanics that they put in there, enough people saw it that they went, yeah, that right there, that needs to be in more things, and then they used it, and it made tons of successful franchises just based off being able to have that kind of knowledge.
Oh yeah.
But again, that's like in even another discussion too, which I would want to do more research before I did that.
I had said, and I think to Mike's, I'm sorry, Mike, continue your point.
Well, I would think, there are games like Starflight comes to mind, right? That's one that was way ahead of its time. I think a game like Shenmue was way ahead of its time.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
There are definitely games that I can think of that just were insanely new and different, and I think even Mortal Kombat was a little bit ahead of its time from a perspective of how you motion captured real people. If you ever go back and watch some of those videos on how they filmed for that, the motion capture was so primitive.
Which game, Mike? I'm sorry?
Mortal Kombat. The original Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Way ahead of its time.
Honestly, I kind of miss that art style. I kind of like that digitized character art style. Now they do.
And what got it started? Crap, I didn't even think about Pit Fighter. Why was I even saying Mortal Kombat? Pit Fighter. And that was a horrible game.
Pit Fighter kind of did that, but I don't know if they used real people. I think they just modeled, didn't they?
No, they did use real people.
100% real people.
Yeah, because if you look at them, they are completely. You look at the digitizing, they're
think
truly
I
real
missed
people.
this one, Si. If you want to link that, go ahead and link that.
What a shameless plug. Look at that.
It is. It's okay, though. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it, Kate. Especially the people I know. I'm okay with it. That's fine. I don't worry about it.
I'm just going to mention again that no one will know what I'm talking about, but I'm just going to say, as far as ahead of its time, is Under a Killing Moon. That game was way ahead of its time. Next.
I don't think I heard of that one.
No one's going to hear of that game.
I'm trying to remember what that game was.
It's an adventure game. Tex Murphy series. Way ahead. It had.
Was that before or after? Before or after Rise of the Dragon?
Oh wait, it was after. But what this game was able to do is you could actually explore in 3D, like opening drawers and stuff like that, with FMV movies attached to it. Really incredible game to look at. Even if you don't like adventure games, just take a look at how incredible that was for the time. But anyway, I don't want to derail this conversation.
Oh, by the way, here's another modern one that would work in a retro that actually somebody's taken forever working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's doing a Mega Man X Corrupted game that they've been working on for like ages. I think it was Eating Paste that actually linked it in my Discord at one point. What they did is they took Mega Man X, but it has like a leveling system and a skill tree now.
Is there an easy mode? Because Matthews would need a really easy mode for Mega Man. That there's like a super easy, almost like we're talking like handy, accessible kind of option for Matthews for Mega Man.
So what it effectively does is let you basically grind out some levels and stuff like that, get some more skill points, make things a little bit easier on you if you're struggling with a certain section, or you could just speed rush through it if you wanted to and try to level up as minimal as possible and things of that nature. I think that's a great way of taking a concept like that and staying true to like the original game, but giving people that option, right? Or even if you had an option to turn off the skill tree if you wanted to, things like that, right? So options like that, I think, are like great things to basically be able to do. And the fact that you've got people that are trying to design features like that into a game, I think is a great way of paying homage to the original series, and then trying to bring more modern nuances in at the same time. Matter of fact, that may have been subconsciously what sparked this conversation in the first place, because I saw that like a week or two ago and was looking at it going, oh my God, this is unbelievably impressive that you have this like massive skill tree that you can go through and you're leveling up. So you're gaining a little bit of health and durability as you do that while you're gaining, knowledge of the level at the same time. So it's kind of like a win all around, right? And eventually you'll push through the game just by leveling and not getting to enough of the skills that you may or may not need to be able to complete the game. But it definitely hits that more kind of choose your own difficulty level, so to speak, right? Depending on how you invest your points, if you invest your points, if you just level, or do you just try to bowl your way through the game or run it as fast as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it more approachable by more people. And I never see that as a bad thing. I understand when games don't do it. Like, I understand why From Software wouldn't do that in most of their titles, because the title is what it is.
Yeah.
They designed it to be this level of difficulty. This is what they wanted out of the game. That was the vision of the game.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't design it with difficulty levels in mind, because part of the experience is, well, dying 80 million times to get there, or however long it takes you particularly to get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cuphead was similar at one point, and then they added like a difficulty curve to make it a little bit more accessible for people. So I understand both points from a theoretical standpoint, but it's nice to have those options. I feel.
Well,
like
as someone who does not, I don't like hard game. I don't like them at all. But I absolutely believe and I admire developers that say, no, this is the difficulty level I'm going with. This was the game I made. This is the experience I want you to have. I applaud that. And hey, if you can include an option, awesome. But if it changes your vision, then I hope you don't include that, because I'd like the developers to stick to that idea.
Honestly, kind of like how RE4 sort of did it, because there are challenge modes and things you can do in that game to up the difficulty. They give you certain rewards or unlock certain parts of the story, or different survivors and stuff like that going through the same sections, and that gives you that increased challenge, right? So you can play through it and you can get like a base story, but like even Contra 3 kind of did this, but I feel like Contra 3 was a little bit more insulting about it. You could put it on an easy mode, beat the game, but it wouldn't give you the full game. It would only give you to a certain point, and then it would basically call you a pansy and tell you to play it on harder difficulty.
Yeah.
Right? You could do something like that where you basically got part of the story. You got to a certain point, and that ends your story then. So if you wanted to do it on a harder difficulty, you get more of the world to explore and experience, or more side areas you can open up that are of increased difficulty and things like that, and scale it that way. Now, the logistics of planning that and doing that, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Right? But development budgets, the way they are and that kind of thing, it's difficult to say. And pace, I would love to put that comment out there, but I don't. No, I'm not putting that one up there. Let's see.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
As I said, if you had to pick and prefer a game to be too easy or too hard, is the challenge more fun, even if it's frustrating, or is it maybe dependent on your mood? And I would probably say mood, because sometimes I'll gravitate towards a harder game deliberately, and sometimes I just don't want to deal with that. Right?
I think it's totally based on, it's just player choice and mood. 100%. I can tell you, for me, I don't. So like this is going to sound so pretentious. I apologize. I'm tired. My artwork is where I like challenge. That's where I like to challenge myself and do things that I didn't think I could do. When I'm playing a game, that is the equivalent of I just want to eat popcorn and see dumb explosions. I want to have a power
This
fantasy.
explains why you like the Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
I generally turn your brain off.
Well, with movies, I typically like art house films, right? I'm saving the Fast and Furious conversation for Chuck. But when I'm playing a game, I just want to that's the 5 minutes where I'm turning my brain off for 5 minutes, and I just want to experience the world, experience the story, the narrative, all that stuff, and not have too much of a challenge where I have to keep replaying something 150 times until I can finally bypass it. That's not where I want my challenge, where I totally understand where someone else would love that and they should have that. So I think it just depends on so for me, I would prefer easier, but I think the vast majority of people would probably more challenging. I think that's the average gameplay would want.
I normally leave things on like the default settings.
Yeah.
Because I figured it's
a healthy balance.
That's where I assume the developer designed the game. Right? They designed it for the nice medium between being able to tell you a story and challenge you a little bit, right? Now, I know some people don't immediately put it on hard because that's what they want. Some people put it on easy because they don't even really want to have to deal with that level of challenge. They just want somebody to tell them a story and to be able to interact with that story. And I feel like Potion's in the same boat with you a lot of times, in a lot of ways, right? Not to be judgmental, Fast and Furious has slowed down a bit as the series has gotten older. It's still furious, though.
They went to space. How could you say that that's slowing down, my friend? Come on. They went to space. Mike, where do you? I imagine I would say you're definitely default normal, and you would lean a little more towards hard. Am I correct?
You are correct. I tend to start normal and go harder if the game warrants it. And it depends on the game. It truly does. It depends on the game. Not even my mood. It just depends on what my desire is for that particular game.
And I think if you wanted the power fantasy, that's where that cheat code would be great. Just to bring it back. That's where you'd have fun with it. Yeah.
But I also seem to I feel like I also, in this day and age of trophies and achievements, sometimes I'm like, I could get that achievement for finishing the mode on hard. I could get that that trophy for, playing a game on hard. It's usually
not a driving factor for me. Like, one of the few games I'll bump the difficulty on is like Diablo, right? because you get increased experience, you get increased drops and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And since I played, and since I've used most of the mechanics they've thrown in that game for like the last 20 years, playing it on veteran or a slightly harder difficulty feels normal, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, no, that
They've
makes
gradually
sense.
gotten a little bit easier over time, so it feels more like what I'm used to playing.
Sure.
And playing it on the normal difficulty feels like it's a little bit on the watered down side as far as where I expect that game to be, right? So, like, I immediately jumped into Diablo 4, and I didn't even have a second thought about just putting it on, like, the next highest difficulty, right? I'm like, I've done this before. I can do this again. That's no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my that's where my comfort zone is, right? As I get better gear, I'll bump it up so I can get even nicer gear because that's how the game works, right? It's all cyclical. So as you get better gear, you bump up the difficulty, you get even better gear, better chance at better drops, that kind of stuff. And that's just how that game works. So I just give myself a little bit of a boost. So if I'm not dying instantly in the first 2 seconds and the boss fight's maybe a little bit more harrowing than it would be, well, that's okay. You know, as long as I can still kind of push through it within a couple attempts. But even when I put that one on veteran, I didn't even die one time in it. In the first 12 levels or so that I played, in the like first 5, 6, 7 hours I played it, I didn't die once. Not even to like the first 2 bosses I ran into. And I'm like, okay, so this is definitely manageable at this rate. Would this be frustrating at parts? Yeah. Does that mean I just have to grind out some gear for a little bit? Yeah, but I was going to do that anyway.
Right.
I think Guitar Hero is the only game that I enjoy the hardest difficulty.
Oh, I can.
And see,
yeah,
I've done that with
hardest.
Beat Saber. Like, I rarely go below expert on that game, and I normally try to push on like expert hard or expert plus on it, and because I'm used to the flow on expert on most tracks, right? Some of them are a little bit challenging, but for the most part, the ones that they built into the game aren't that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now the player made maps, those are absolutely totally different, right?
Right.
Hard on that may feel like an expert plus stage to me, because that's what they consider hard, right? At best, their expert and expert plus is just ridiculousness on the screen, right? That I'm sure somebody can execute, but it's not going to be me. You know, so. And then again, that goes back to the game, your familiarity with it, what your comfort level is, right?
I think with Guitar Hero though, and potentially like Beat Saber though, that was Guitar Hero was the first time I really had to reevaluate my life, where I went like, what am I doing with my life? I'm picking at a plastic controller. I am clicking this thing, making no music. I should probably either pick up a guitar or focus on overcoming this crippling intimacy issues that I have and get a girlfriend. like I don't understand what I'm doing with this guitar.
Hero skills.
Yeah. You just like, what am I doing?
That reminds me, there was a South Park episode about Guitar Hero.
Yeah, that one was great.
I was on a podcast where I found out, because I was like, I wanted to do a skit on my show where one of the characters is like trying to win the affection of a girl with just clicking on this guitar. But someone said, dude, that was on South Park. I'm like, damn it. So I saw that episode. It was hilarious.
If it makes you feel any better, I mean, South Park even did an episode that
about
the Simpsons did everything.
Yeah.
That
the Simpsons did it. Yeah.
So
it was a brilliant. It was funny as hell.
Actually, that one might have been Family Guy. I can't remember if it was Family Guy.
No, it was South Park. Did
South Park did Simpsons did it.
Yeah. Yep.
So Beat Saber, I upped the difficulty because I actively use Beat Saber as a form of exercise, right?
Sure.
Oh,
so well, that's
I want to have it on expert or expert plus, because that's where I start getting my heart rate up, trying to keep pace with what's going on the screen.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So I do it for that reason, right? And some of those tracks I just enjoy being able to I do get a sense of like satisfaction if I go through and finish a track I haven't finished before on expert plus. Like, I actually do get a nice like dopamine burst from that, right? I feel like I accomplished something. Whereas like if I'm beating my head against a boss in like say Demon Souls or something like that, It's a different feeling because I feel like that game's designed to just punish. It's not giving you options to make things more challenging to where you choose the challenge. It just wants to beat you senseless and hope you're just gonna like lean into it and have fun that way. Right.
So that reminds me of not necessarily a mechanic per se. That so when talking about difficulty and what difficulty we play on, something from new
exercising games is the worst.
something from new to old, I would say, being able to adjust that difficulty mid game. I don't remember too many
I can
games.
see that.
I don't remember
that
too many
sense.
retro games that let you start off hard, but then go, this is too hard for me, and turn it to easy.
Yeah. Right.
My cat just looks at me funny when I play Beat Saber, but I can totally see this being a problem. Like playing Beat Saber in VR, my cats don't enjoy that experience though. After playing, it takes a couple hours to gain trust again. Hitting the walls. He doesn't like dance or aerobics on the NES. I never had a power pad, so not me.
Oh, I did. Oh yeah.
Power pad would definitely kick your butt. Like track and field with a power pad would definitely kick your butt.
You know, that is a game mechanic that is gone. Are the Dance Dance Revolution?
Oh, yeah.
Well, but even going back past Connect, like the Dance Dance Revolution stuff, the karaoke revolution, being able to plug a microphone in, that mechanic is long gone.
Yep.
Well, a lot of the Guitar Hero and Rock Band and all those kind of faded by the wayside for the most part. A Zombie said he's attempted to get the boxing trainer game on the Switch. That's Fist of the North Star focused. I thought about that as well, just because it seems like a good little kind of like boxing thing to do that would be fun. I was looking for a good one of those in VR as well, because I think VR would have a little bit more flexibility that way. So you could do hooks and uppercuts and things like that.
I know on the PlayStation there's a lot of good ones.
Yeah. I think MetaQuest has a lot of them too, because I've got like a Quest 2 is what I've got.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't bought the PlayStation. I didn't buy the original PlayStation VR.
Okay.
Because I think I had a Rift at the time. I haven't dove into the PSVR 2, even if you can get your hands on it right now, which has been sketchy at best.
I've got the original PSVR, which is really good, and of course I've got the MetaQuest 2, which I really like.
Yeah, I like the Quest 2 because I don't like having the cables, right? I don't want that cable trailing from the back. I had that with the Rift, and moving to the Quest 2 was probably the best move I made, because not having that wire, even if you're remote desktoping into a computer and running everything off your PC, it's still really, really nice to not have to deal with that cable. It's just super handy. And if I want to take it outside, for which I don't, I probably never would. I've seen people take the VR headsets outside and play with them outside, and I'm like, dude, you look dumb enough in your house. Trust me, I've been there. I do this all the time. I'm guilty as charged, but come on, man. Rock Band and Guitar Hero died craze-wise, but they tend to rise and fall in popularity.
I love Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, what really killed those is there were so many of them coming out with so many of those controllers so quickly that I think they just oversaturated the market and it just tapered out. It was kind of like when Skylanders was a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Disney Infinity.
Lego.
Yeah. Lego did their own thing. The
Lego Dimensions,
right?
Lego
Dimensions I thought was a little cooler because you actually built those in Lego, which at least you had a fun Lego kit. The others you just had a statue.
And you had licensing, like you had the DC licensing for that stuff. So you had Batman, you had Ghostbuster, and we've got a bunch of that.
We had Marvel with Disney. Disney had a bunch of Marvel characters.
Disney had that, and we have the Disney
Infinity.
Star Wars. Yep, we have the Disney Infinity upstairs. Well, it's old. It's sunk cost. I'm sorry, Panda.
Anytime I hear it, it's a reflex. I can't help it.
This was before Disney turned to crap. But we've got so much cool Lego Dimension stuff that I wish was backward compatible, because it was all USB. It's all USB stuff. So you would think that they could possibly make it back compat, and they haven't.
Well, there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
And this is again like a third or fourth topic. I'm probably gonna have to rewatch this because having USB controllers, particularly ones that have a PC mode and not having them work with like say an Xbox, is stupid.
Say that again. I'm not understanding.
Like, okay, I have an arcade stick that works with my PS4.
Okay.
It'll work on a PS3.
Okay.
And it's set to work with PC.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll also work with PS5 because it works with PS4 controllers, but it has a PC mode.
Okay.
Why would that not work on an Xbox when Windows recognizes it?
Okay. So it's like a licensing issue or something? Is that
Or they want you to buy their arcade stick, which they don't have one specifically for the Series X, but the Xbox One version should work just fine. I would imagine. Yeah. I can't imagine they wouldn't.
Let me ask this: do you consider, because I want to play off of Cyrus's because this is something
music issue that I've got.
Well, so this is. I'm going in a slightly different direction by answer me this question. Do you consider the OG Xbox retro at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then something I would like to bring from old to new is the return of custom soundtracks.
Oh, absolutely. Particularly with everything having a hard drive now, or even just being able to plug it into USB
or stream, just be able to, or just to be able to stream it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm wondering if
some games have that. I've seen a couple modern games that have had that. Angry Joe had one, and he got his review flagged on it, but it was like a racing game, and he could pump in his own soundtrack to it.
I would like to see that, but though, I mean, so like with the Xbox 360, actually with the Xbox and the Xbox 360, those were system level things. Like it didn't matter what game you were playing, you could pump a custom soundtrack in to whatever you were playing.
Right. And that's not a thing anymore.
But isn't the solve to that? And this is a question, not a statement.
That's bizarre, by the way.
This isn't a question. This is a question, not a statement. I know PlayStation has this. I'm very confident Xbox has it as well, where people put their, Spotify. You can play Spotify while you're playing a game.
I don't know if
I can tell you PlayStation 100% has this. I've got to imagine.
I bet you can do it on the Series X. You could probably just
have to imagine
in the background.
Because I would imagine that is the more modern version of what you're looking to do.
Yeah, because before you were basically putting a disc, ripping it onto your hard drive on the Xbox, and then just putting it in place of whatever was there. Now, you could do stuff like Tony Hawk. You could literally make it like a selectable track, I think, inside the game. Right,
that's cool. Where you could pick your own, like you want to
and stuff like that. I think you could do it.
That's
that
awesome.
Way. And I think that was an option on some of the games. There it wasn't on everything, but I think that was an option on a lot of that.
So you think that's still? So I'm gonna have to go try that then, because if that's something that I can do.
I'm telling you, I'm speaking for the PlayStation. I'm very confident Xbox can do this. What I
bet you if Series X has Spotify, I bet you can play it and have the game going. And
that's exactly what you can do.
But then you'd also have to go in. So you'd also have to go into the game you're playing and turn the music down there.
Yes.
No, it does it. It does it. From my understanding,
does it do it automatically?
It does it automatically. Yeah. So
really,
okay.
Yes. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty.
Yeah, I don't know if it does. Sure, it does on the PlayStation, but I don't know about the Xbox.
Yeah, I can speak for PlayStation.
Because most of the time when I'm in a game, for the most part, like unless I'm in a driving game or like say if I'm playing GTA for whatever weird reason would make me play GTA because it's not a series I really like, and I don't like any of their radio stations, it would be nice to use like say Spotify or something, right, as an option. Just change it to the Spotify station or something. Right. You can let it play that way.
That'd be the easiest solution. Yeah.
Certain games I think would be great that way. Certain ones I want that music because that's part of the immersion of the game, right?
Yeah.
Doom without that soundtrack I want that. Give me more of that, right?
Right. You don't want to listen to Enya. Well,
right. Like it would be like playing a Silent Hill without the atmospheric music and sound effects, right? You wouldn't want to do it, right? But other games, yeah, absolutely.
I would want to play Silent Hill to stuff like Alabama and
Because you want to break that immersion because it's scaring the living crap out of you.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I can see it from that aspect too. But at this point, I think we've kind of gone a little bit off topic. We should probably wrap things up a little bit. We're down to 8 viewers. So
I can say
hardcore hung out with us all night.
Then I've saved like something that I know the chat would give two craps about. Can I just say it since you're wrapping up?
Yes.
Sure.
So for me, this is no one will care about this. What I'd love to bring from the new to the old is the idea that not all games have to be games, that they can be art pieces, that you can do experimental things with them. And I think a perfect example of this, a really perfect example of this, where you could actually see it in an older game is Braid. I won't give away the ending of Braid, but that is a traditional kind of more 2D platformer of sorts. And when you get to the ending, what they did there was an incredible moment. So the idea of bringing art into games, instead of it just being a shooter, a shoot 'em up or whatever, that you could actually bring something to it that said something, just to have that option. So
I'd give you another example. That is Journey.
Mm-hmm.
Journey wasn't a very difficult game. It rarely ever gave you that much of a challenge, but it was a beautiful experience. And one I thoroughly enjoyed going through. And even when people popped in to my game for a little bit and just hung out, it didn't feel offensive. It didn't feel antagonistic. It didn't feel like they didn't belong there. It wasn't an intrusion. They were just there, hanging out with me on my journey. Yeah. Right. And it was kind of nice as the people floated in and out of the game. So it was nice to have an experience like that didn't necessarily need to be a super hard challenge. And I think that's where a lot of people go with games like Stardew and stuff like that, right? It's not about doing things fast, and though you can do that with certain parts of the game, it's more about being in that world, doing the daily things, checking out what you can do, just kind of experiencing.
And Stardew is a good example, because like the reason why I said Braid is only just because I'm going back to that older technology, and the Stardew Valley could totally work on that. I'm sorry, Mike.
I would also say a game like Inside.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, Inside can be kind of challenging, though, as you're trying to figure out the puzzles.
Well, it's not about challenge. I'm just saying an experimental art piece.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
absolutely.
I can, without giving that away, if you haven't played Inside, I will tell you, I have a stream of Inside on the NLG channel. I stream that all the way through. And the end of that game, I must have stared at the screen for like a good 2 minutes and said, "What the hell just happened?"
Yeah,
that's it. That's it. And then it was a moment that's a great mechanic to moments that just make you stop.
Well, Brothers is another one.
Brothers is another one.
Limbo is another one, because it's kind of almost a silhouette kind of affair. There's color, but you don't see a lot of it because you're just kind of seeing the silhouette of everybody the whole time, which can make things more interesting and more menacing at the same time.
BioShock too.
BioShock. Oh my God, BioShock's amazing. Yeah, BioShock's probably one of those worlds where you get in and you go, wow. And then the twist at the end, whether you kind of saw it coming or not, the way it played out, I thought was very cool.
I agree. I still kind of anticipated it, but when it happened, it was still...
It was realness in Pennsylvania.
Well, it's
he got lost in it a few hours as you took him someplace.
Nick gets these references. You may not. You may not.
But Silent Hill actually was based on something in Pennsylvania, so it's a double thing. It actually works for both.
Yes. No, but there is some specific trauma that Cy went through.
Getting lost for 10 hours, if I remember right? Something like that?
No, it wasn't 10 hours.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just exaggerating.
Yes, because Cyrus exaggerates.
Oh, by the way, a game for you, because I know you like adventure games and puzzle games,
You
point and click
being
type games.
you being
You
Me.
being Panda, Roki,
Roki.
ROKI.
Okay, I've not heard of that one.
The art style in this game is beautiful.
Okay.
Matter of fact, let me see if I can pull up some footage on it. And it's kind of almost more as artistic as it is.
Okay, yeah. I bet you, what's his name, worked on it. The guy from Double Fine. Looks very similar to his art style. Bagel is his actual, like, it's his nickname is Bagel.
But this is some of the gameplay of the actual game. The art style is kind of a nice art style.
Mm-hmm.
And you're basically picking up various different items, figuring out how to navigate the world, where to use things, etc. There's not a ton of combat.
Mm-hmm.
It's got this kind of nice outdoorsy winter feel to it. There's not a lot of like music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, looks great.
I think you would love this. I went through this one and loved this game. It was great.
Is this on consoles? Do you know?
I think it is.
Okay.
I got it on Steam, but I'm pretty sure you can get it on a console.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. This looks great. This looks right up my alley.
Yeah. So that's why I kind of wanted to show it to you, because I'm like, I know you've played a lot of stuff like this before, and I think this is one you probably missed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've not heard of it. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Let me see what it's on. Let's see. Game, any puzzle.
So I'm going to throw you guys a question.
Yeah, it's on everything.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to throw you guys a last-minute question as we wrap up. So with everything we talked about, bringing the old to the new to the old, if we could have that perfect, right? If we could bring all these great new mechanics to the old, and we got that perfect the way we wanted it, or we could bring all the old into the new. If you had to pick the world to live in, that you could only play those games, which world would you play in? Would you play in that old world with the perfect new mechanics? Or would you go the other way? And please don't pull a Chuck where you go, oh, well, I'm going to pick new because you can have retro games don't do that. Don't try and find a loophole. I'm saying which environment would you stick to?
I would play in the old environment with new control, with new stuff brought in.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably would too, and it goes back. It's probably for slightly different reasons, because I feel like, as we've talked about, the games feel like they're a little bit more complete. Mm-hmm. And there were more different types of games, I feel like, than there are now. Right now, we seem to be in a rut game-wise. At least I feel like, because it's either an 80-hour open world, or it's like a Demon Souls kind of thing, where it's just, kill you super quick.
But remember, you're able to bring that old to the new. Just remember, it's the perfect environment, right? So in this perfect environment, you would have, as Mike had said, the kind of the 10 to half hour sit down and play games nowadays. I might
stick new then, because there's been a lot of stuff that's been developed that I do like, that I wouldn't necessarily want to lose. I just feel like because as things stand now, we spend more time patching and repatching the game till it's playable. Mm-hmm. And there's too many open world games. Mm-hmm. And I very quickly run into open world burnout. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not super keen on jumping. Like, even Gotham Knights is a bit of a struggle right now, because I just finished Immortals Phoenix Rising, which was great. I dumped 60 hours into that, and there's probably another 40, 50, 60 hours I can dump into it. Mm-hmm. And probably enjoy it after I've had a bit of a break. Mm-hmm. But there was other stuff I wanted to play, right? Sure. And then I jumped into Gotham Knights, and it definitely has those kind of grindy zones, but it feels less organic than Immortal does. Like, Immortal, it was just interesting things to do. Mm-hmm. In Gotham Knights, I feel like I'm doing it so I can craft my next weapon, so that I can beat on the guy a little more efficiently than I could before.
Right.
Because they're scaling to the point where it's just annoying to fight them. Like, it's not fun, it's just tedious. Right? And that balances out that curve. Or there's level suggestions on when I fight somebody. So I have to make sure as I'm progressing through these things, if I want to do the side stuff, I have to go through and grind out these levels and do these things. Not necessarily because I want to at that time, but because I need to be able to handle the stage they're going to throw at me, right? So there's that kind of like almost lack of respect for the amount of time somebody has, right?
Right.
And I feel like it's something that needs to kind of be, there needs to be a mix, right? Because there's a time and a place where I want to sit down and do an 80 to 100 hour game, right? I'll sink my teeth into that for ages. And they're great for people who have more time, and that's the experience they want. So I don't want them to go away, but I want more of a blend of ones that I can pick up and I can complete in, like, say, 6 to 12 hours, right? Regardless of difficulty, somewhere between 6 and 12 hours is like max when you're done, right? You're good.
Right.
Because as I get older and I get busier, or I just have less time, like especially now, it seems like I have less time in the evening than I've ever had before. I don't even have time to sit down and play a game.
Mm-hmm.
When I do, I don't want to dive into a 100, 120 hour game like I did when I was a kid. I just don't. I don't. There's too many games coming out that I want to play. I don't want to lose a half a year to one game. I don't have that kind of time. There's other stuff I want to do and play.
So, but to be clear, both of you guys are saying that you would, in this perfect environment, that you'd be stopping at the Xbox, the original.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would almost even, you're almost to the borderline of throwing in like the PlayStation 2. Because the PlayStation,
well, it is.
You would. You throw the PlayStation 2.
You can. PlayStation 2 and GameCube.
Because that's that generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're totally allowed to do that.
Because you need GameCube around that time too.
Yep. That's that. All of that is that generation.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm the odd man out. I would go new, but that's fitting for me because I like I like immersion. I always like moving forward in things, and I like I just love the worlds that you can build nowadays. To me, the innovation that I guess you guys are not seeing, I feel that I'm seeing innovation. So that would be the direction I'm going in.
Times I like the direction they're going, and there's times I don't necessarily can invest the time.
Oh, there's no right or wrong here, guys. I'm not. This is not a.
No, I'm just having that discussion. You see what I'm saying? It's not an argument. It's just having that discussion.
Yeah,
sorry.
No, I think where I would change my answer only if shit didn't come out broken. Or if
but again, you would have that perfect.
You would have that perfect, but you know what you would also have? You would also have games as a service. You'd also have free to play. You'd also have all of those things that that are hurting the industry now. I'd rather have my games pure, but having and see. Given you said art style would be one to bring back to retro, so I would have some of that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, of course.
So, if we're stopping at Xbox, you could get those worlds.
You still have like DLC and stuff like that as well.
I would say like even the GameCube graphics.
Some of the earliest times that had real DLC attached to them. But it wasn't microtransaction DLC; it was just expansions and stuff.
To me, when I think of, and I'm just, there's a million like art house games I'm not going to mention. There's some that you guys will know. Like you take Red Dead Redemption 2. To me, that is a masterpiece of just an actual experience of feeling like you're in a pretty meaty Western with some incredible writing. And you can also just visit a town and look at the stars. You can go on a date. I don't know if you played the game, but you actually go on this incredible date. So like it's just this amazing immersion and this amazing world building. That stuff I find absolutely fascinating. But the points you guys are making are 100% valid, and I think most people in this chat would absolutely agree with you. As a matter of fact, I think even Cyrus said that he agreed to. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah, he said he wouldn't play games if he couldn't play retro games.
Totally get it. Yep.
And there's a lot of people that are like that, and really, I think it just comes down to. It's mostly the current era's fatigue that I think puts that on it. So like your question's already kind of tainted in our not because of how you phrased it, because in our minds from what we've experienced, particularly the last couple of years with the releases, with delays, with
Right, but I'm
games.
taking it. So my perfect
but
world
it's
is
hard to
there's none of
shelf that. You see what I'm saying?
For me, it was easy. It was like,
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with all this crap, and it's finished, and I have the thing, and it's what I bought. It plays like, wow, okay, great. Cyberpunk's a great game that we have now. That first thing was terrible, but to get Cyberpunk that way the first time out, poof, amazing.
So I could see it from that standpoint. I would like to see some of the stuff from Retro like that come in with a little, not necessarily having to have like 18 million controls to be able to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially when you're trying to like, and this comes back to like a PC problem of trying to like, you wonder how they take like something like Gotham Knights and map it to a controller when they can't officially map it to a keyboard. Like I'm looking at it going, why is this the way it's laid out? This doesn't make any sense. How did you even get this to work on a controller? You just got too much shit here for individual things going on.
Language, Nick.
How are you approaching this? It's after like
it's after midnight.
Most people's time. So how do you map that, right? Like, what's your thought process? Like, and then other games make total sense. Like you look at Diablo and like, I'll do that on a mouse and keyboard, and I can map things to like my mouse or something like that, and that works fine. But it fits natively on a controller because of how intelligently they designed it.
Right.
So I don't know. It's a mixed bag. I mean, there's tons of like lately. I've been doing more modern gaming than I've been doing retro gaming. Quite frankly, I've barely been touching retro gaming. I've been playing stuff like I've been playing Diablo 4, I've been playing Gotham Knights, I've been playing River City Girls. I grabbed some footage for my RTS game from StarCraft 2, and they got me back into playing StarCraft 2 again. So there's a bunch of things I've been messing around with that aren't necessarily like day-to-day modern, but definitely considered modern era games that I've been loving and having a good time with.
See, I would say that the wrench I would throw into your guys, the only thing I would say to consider about your option, right, is that in sticking to the past, the great thing about that with this perfect world is you're going to get a lot of great new games. They're not retro games, that's the new games that are coming out for you, right? So you're going to get a ton of these new games in this style that you guys like. The only problem to me would be at some point ideas will hit a wall that you can no longer go past this wall. And that to me is why I would always want to go for the new, because you'll have a Stardew Valley and you could have a Zelda, for instance, like A Link to the Past is an open world. Oh, I'm sorry, that does actually go to Xbox. I'm wrong. You can branch out into a 3D environment, so it's scratch all.
Yeah.
Like you had Couture, you had all that stuff.
Yeah. You had a lot of 3D environments, and you could do. Yeah. You could kind of do an open world graphically. You wouldn't have the same fidelity as you would have.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. If the gameplay would be there, you'd have even Ocarina of Time, did it. So
yeah,
I take that back.
And realistically, the main advancements have been. A lot of the main advancements past the Xbox
graphically
have been graphical, not necessarily
mechanics
or game style.
Modifications of controls, that's about it. And,
Right. And you've still got like dual analog sticks. You've still got your basic controller design already there.
See that? Yeah.
You don't have the paddles on the bottom or anything like that, but you've got the core of your controller design that's still used today is there.
Yes. Actually, yeah, and that's why I'm glad you can go as far as OG Xbox.
Yeah. That's a good point that Cyrus makes. Yeah, that there is so many things that really by the time you would hit that creative wall, you're probably long dead.
Right.
Yeah. Buried.
Right. And a lot of us, and we'll wrap up on this and kind of go around because I know Mike's running out of gas and I should go spend some time with my wife as well.
Eat some beans.
It's as time kind of moves forward, we're also moving out of the demographic, right, of what's going to be there. So there's going to be more and more stuff that's not really going to pique our interest as time goes on, because it's designed for a newer audience, because it has to, right? That's
theory, though, we're
to be their
still in
audience.
that demo. We're still there because consoles typically go higher in age, not lower.
Kind of, but I mean, you're looking at Fortnite being one of the most popular games ever right now, and I have like zero interest in the game. I've tried it several times and just never cared for it.
I'm with you there.
You've got mostly online shooters and stuff like that, and I'm not big on online shooters, so I don't really play those, right? I mean, it's not to say that there aren't things that don't come out in the indie scene. There's not to say that there aren't AAAs that I haven't enjoyed. Have I enjoyed them as much as I enjoyed some of the earlier revisions? Not necessarily, but they were still fun experiences. Immortals was one of the ones where I looked at it and went, okay, here's an open world I can actually get into, right? I'm actually having fun doing this out of things. There's enough variation and differences in this, and I'm not getting bored going in here. I feel like they're making clever use of how things are laid out, and I have to kind of stop and think about it more so than I did Breath of the Wild, where it just felt, one, they were kind of harder to find, and two, it was just sort of exhausting going into them after a while, and it just didn't feel as dynamic, right? I lost interest in it fairly early on, and it became something I just did so I could get to the next thing, right? Because I wanted that little bit of a power boost to be able to shore up for the next thing, rather than having to like use their combat system to its fullest, which admittedly is probably a disservice to the combat mechanics on it. But then I always found their combat lacked a bit of punch compared to other games, right? Whereas Phoenix,
pun intended.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, if I hit somebody with a greatsword and it takes as many swings before it breaks as a mop, then what are you doing? Especially when I don't notice the damage difference by much. Like,
those blacksmiths make crap swords. That's for sure.
Apparently Hyrule just sucks at blacksmithing.
Yeah.
Like, as a rule.
A Hyrule, if you will. I can do this all night, people.
I think a game level layouts are ruined now. You get a games guide, you see the map, and it's always this weird tunnel system. And I can kind of see that. Open world's a little bit different than that, but I can kind of see that. We'd have older style games with newer graphics and a unique controller of some kind. There you go. Anyway, let's go around what everybody's doing this week. Panda, I'm going with you because I have a feeling it's going to be fast.
Pretty quick, yeah. So pretty quick, but like if you see how much work I'm actually doing behind the scenes.
Oh, dude, you're doing a ridiculous amount of stuff.
Oh yeah,
I tease you because that's how we bond.
Oh, you should tease me. I deserve it. But I am working on I actually am working on 5 episodes all at the same time that will release throughout this year and then into next. So the episode I'm working on now actually began in 2017. It is still going, and I'm hoping to get it done late April or late May. That's the latest it'll be. Really, what I'm trying to make on my channel is episodes that you and the family can sit down and hopefully just have a really good time watching a sci-fi kind of epic comedy series. I want it to feel fun and exciting. It's got action sequences, horror sequences, dance numbers, you name it. It's all there. So look for that on my channel, PandaSub 2000.
Sounds like a great rom-com.
Yeah. There is a rom-com episode, by the way, coming up.
It's got to be based off Super Seducer or We Riot.
Yeah. And I would say, in the meantime, if you check out PandaSub 2000 on Instagram or Twitter, I always put a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff there so you can watch the making of the stuff. Thank you, as always, Nick. I appreciate this. Has always been a great show.
Oh, dude, anytime you want to come on, man, just let me know, hey, I'm available this week, and you're on. That's just how that works. I usually try to leave you alone for the most part because, like you said, you got like 5 episodes going at once. Yeah. And the more I'm pestering you, the less you're getting down in them. And
I shaved my head for it.
I figured that was just stress making you lose all your hair.
No, yeah. It's literally a 4-second scene. That's why I had to shave my head. I'm like, I got to shave my head again. So anyway, thank you.
Mike, what you got?
All right, tomorrow night over on NLG, we got a brand new NLG show. It's going to be me and Peter is back from vacation, back from Florida. Chris and Sir X-Man. I'm also trying to get, we have another guest that was supposed to be on last week, but last week didn't happen, so we'll get him on. And we're going to talk about, obviously there's a ton of stuff going on still, but almost.
I've heard some rumblings with Microsoft. What's going on?
God,
with
please
Microsoft?
don't. Please tell me you're not going to cover that again. For the love of God, take 1 week off, man.
We're almost at the end of this stupid saga. We're almost at the end of this stupid thing. But our main topic tomorrow night is going to be game preservation and who is doing it right, who is not, and how can we get back to game preservation being kind of a number one priority, and that's that discussion's gonna lead into things like minis and the retro market, and is the retro market going to start becoming affordable again and things like that. So that's our main topic.
That's one I want to have on here at some point for sure, but I want to approach it more from current games and how you preserve those. Because they're so big now and they're so complicated and they don't fit on the disc. And where do you store them? And can you store them? Because most of them are services, right? Or logging in, you don't have access to it.
Right.
And and if you guys need to mention the battlefields and stuff like that being pulled off the store.
That's exactly.
Can't download them now.
That's exactly why we're talking about this. Is that announcement that they're pulling Bad Company 2, and I forgot the third one.
Yeah, it was like one of the early
Battlefield 4, I think.
Yeah,
was coming off.
So it's stuff like that's why I wanted to bring it up here, is because that's another thing. Because they did that with DuckTales at one point on Steam. They pulled it down. You couldn't even download it if you didn't have it. You just when they brought it back, you could re-download it. But if you didn't have it downloaded, that's a problem.
Well, and Cyrus makes a very good point about licensed music, because that has a lot to do with stuff getting pulled off stores, not being backward compatible, and that's going to be part of that conversation as well.
Yes.
So that's our main topic for tomorrow.
So my channel obviously had a video on Berserk pop up this week. I have another one. I have an oddity coming in on Wednesday. I'm going to cover something Super Famicom related. It also touches on the original Famicom a little bit.
Nice.
I'm kind of active. I haven't gotten to it lately, but I did a good chunk of voice work on a Master System video that I want to put out. I may still send that script off to a couple people I know that have dove pretty deep into the Master System itself, to have them kind of look it over and see what they think. To make sure it's all kind of clean, because I decided to start that one more from their arcade days and move forward, because I had forgotten how much their arcade origins or beginnings influenced them all the way through. And had I done the Master System first, I probably would have approached a couple of videos differently, because it's another way they sort of shot themselves in the foot. As if they needed another.
Exactly.
So that'll be coming up eventually on the channel, and I have a couple other ideas for things. One related to Mike's Donkey Kong video that I want to work up.
Oh, good.
It's a lot of the coverage on some of the stuff I've covered in disparate videos, but it's not been put together in one video. And also, if you're a fan of the channel, expect shorts at some point. I still haven't touched on that yet, but I think it's an avenue I probably. As much as I'm loath to do it, I probably should pursue it.
I just put my first one up.
It's a good way of helping people find the channel.
I just put my first one up today, and actually, you are in it.
Oh, really?
Oh, the Sarah McLachlan stuff last week.
Oh,
was just, that is. I could not. That was my almost. That was one of my favorite parts of last week. So that's our first short.
That was part of the deal. I shaved my head because his daughter kicked my butt in horse racing, and the deal was I had to shave my head. So
there you go.
It's all because of her.
So that's what I've got going on my channel. There's a lot of stuff going on. Some of the series may start fading out because I'm finding it harder and harder to find material for them. Both moments and oddities are getting harder.
Dude,
and harder
you
to
should
find
just
for.
start lying. Just be. Did you know in 1932, Shigeru Miyamoto created the 3D adventure game called?
Just make shit up.
Did you know in 1818
Language,
VR was a thing? Oh, apparently your hair has a fan.
The lack thereof, yeah.
So yeah, those may fade out. I've got a couple ideas written down somewhere. If not, I'm gonna have to rethink them as far as what'll come down. That may slow down content because a lot of the ideas I had are kind of longer content. So I need to find some other stuff that I can do that's shorter form as well, because I like being able to do the shorter form because I can regularly give you guys more content. And I think that's a good way, not only promoting the channel, but it gives you guys a couple things each week where you get in, you learn a tidbit, and then you go about your day. That was always kind of the idea of being the bread and butter of the channel, and then having like a deeper dive, once a month, twice a month, that kind of thing, where you had something that was a little bit longer. When you had the time, you could spend the time on that. But I figured somewhere between 4 and 7 minutes was a good better zone of, well, I got like 6 minutes, I've got a break. I can sit down and watch this, and I'll learn like 1 or 2 facts and be a little bit smarter, or engage with that for a little bit during the day, and then kind of move about my day. It doesn't overwhelm you with stuff or bog down in too many details, and I think that's a good way to kind of bring that kind of knowledge to people.
At some point, you could probably ask the chat if they have any suggestions on topics that they'd like to learn
I've had
about.
multiple people send me suggestions, but yeah, if you guys have suggestions, right now I'm at Cash Geeks on Twitter. I should probably change that a little bit, but anyway, it's kind of a thing. Next time I do a Nintendo documentary, you should collab with me on the real history of Nintendo Part 2s. Yeah, I should probably do that, and that would actually be funny, just to do like reactions as you're babbling, going, "What? Huh? What are you talking about?" But for now, I'm gonna get out of here. I think I think Mike's literally falling asleep.
Yeah.
And, Panda never sleeps, but he'll probably pass out and hit his head on his keyboard at some point.
Most likely. Yes.
We'll be sitting here trying to fill dead air. So we're going to bounce out of here. Thank you, everybody who came in and hung out, even if it was just for 5 minutes, or you just came.
You have a great chat. I have to say the chat is
the chat's
fantastic.
awesome. It got quiet
you have
for
a
a
great
little while
chat.
as people started dipping out, because we ran about 40 minutes longer than I normally run, and people kind of dip a little bit when that happens. So random collab with me on kitchen knives or roller skates. Hopefully not at the same time, sir. For your own safety.
That would.
Thank you, Si.
That'd be a hell of a
You guys
cooking
have a
channel.
great night. Thank you so much for hanging out and participating. You guys definitely make this show what it is, and we're always appreciative to have you in here. If it was just us talking, we'd probably be out of ideas in 5 minutes.
And just always remember that Mr. Matthews sucks at Mega Man. Just as a reminder to everyone. Good night, everyone.
Good night, folks. Thank you.
Bye, gamers.